To those hobbyists finagling about with your ham radio equipment, searching for strange stations hidden on the AM band. To those long-haul truckers stalking the radio waves for a friendly voice to accompany your travels into moonlit oblivion. To those hunting ghosts and monsters in the dead of night, playing around with an old radio while you watch your trail cameras, for you're far too out in the boonies to get proper internet for any music streaming platform. You didn't find this broadcast. This broadcast found you. Dabinio. Welcome to Foxxo Esoterica, the unauthorized paranormal comedy radio broadcast recorded live and uploaded as a podcast on each and every full moon, fingers crossed. And tonight, welcome to our first rendition of Plane Crash, where folklore beats fiction. Such titles are best explained with the title music. Welcome to the foxhole at Foxxo Esoterica. I promise I was sober when I wrote this. Blessed Samhain and happy Halloween, dear pagans, paranormal enthusiasts, and poor people who got cursed once again by our haunted radio broadcast. This is our first broadcast of an episode of Foxxo Esoterica, Plane Crash, where my husband, Zuma the Puma, and I discuss various fictional settings across literature, film, and video games, and compare the folklore therein to actual folkloric inspirations found in the real world. But tonight, as the veil draws thinner, and the undead find themselves very unceremoniously restless, we're going to discuss fictional Halloweens. And what exactly that means is that we're going to both present 3 different fictional settings and discuss a Halloween-adjacent festival found in these various planes across the literary multiverse. Tonight's episode isn't scripted. It's entirely freeform. And as a result, we'll skew on the longer side runtime-wise. But if you find a secluded, peaceful moment on this holiday when you aren't performing Sabbath rituals with your coven, imbibing something intoxicating at a party in order to make the scary movies even scarier, or even trick-or-treating in general, which is fine at any age, we hope this casual, laid-back discussion finds you well. Additionally, it will be mentioned, but there will be an additional episode. Oh yes, my script writing is so good, I'm going to use the word additional twice. There will be an additional episode on the full moon on November 5th. Consider this a bonus episode. A treat, if you will. And if you don't like it, it's still a treat. I can't account for bad taste. Let's get on with the discussion. Alrighty, we're recording now. Welcome back to Foxxo Esoterica in its original form with more than just me talking. I'm your host, Forseti Fox. I'm going to make an intro later, and it's going to take place before I'm currently speaking. And tonight, we're joined with my husband, Zuma the Puma.
So glad to be back here. Am I being picked up all right? Do you know that?
You know what, actually? Let me double check. Say some words.
I did just say some
words.
Well,
no, I'm looking at the wave.
Okay. Well, I don't know. In December 6, 1835, the author went from Nuremberg to Fürth and thereby created the first railroad line in Germany.
Yeah, that got picked up.
Good.
So yeah, I think I'm covering this in the intro. I better be. But tonight, we're doing a little fun topic. We're not doing a ghost story, we're not doing a legend. We're here to discuss fictional Halloweens. So the concept that Zuma came up with, we both picked 3 different fictional settings. It could be books, video games, anything. And we're going to discuss the internal Halloween that takes place within these settings. And to celebrate the mood, we have Cooper's Original Hard Cider. Because that's a very fall-coded beverage.
You know, I'd call your alcohol at the beginning of the episode thing gimmicky, but it is literally a gimmick, so I guess it's not just gimmicky.
Yeah, I also only do it with, the guest episodes. I didn't do it for the, Resurrection Mary episode. I just sat in the apartment at 11 in the morning and recorded it sober.
Okay, well... That's somewhat more depressing than if you had drunk during it, I guess.
I also did the thing where I covered myself with the blanket, which we're not currently doing because I'm not going to cover 2 people in a blanket for an hour. But
does that really do all that much?
It genuinely does. Like, you're going to hear this episode and then maybe listen to the one after that and be like, oh my god, we need to record in the studio. We don't need it because I don't care that much.
Very hard maybe on that.
Yeah. I mean...
You need to riff back a little bit, Aaron, otherwise...
I'm wetting my whistle.
You need to riff back a little bit, Forseti.
No, it's okay. I think I name-dropped my literal name in the first Carious Fox's book, which is canon to the lore we're inside right now.
Your literal name.
Yeah. We have 3 stories, but before I do that, what is Halloween? I did that part of the research. The origins of Halloween, so that way we can start the episode talking about something truly pagan and then going off the rails. So are you ready to learn about Halloween? What do you know about the origins of Halloween right now, off the top of your head?
Well, off the top of your head, you told me yesterday or something that All Hallows Eve is a day for all the Catholic saints that don't have their own day to be honored.
Yeah.
So it is called Allerheiligen in German, so I know that. In
my research, there's like 4 different names for it in English, but I think it's because... I'll get to that in a second. I'll do the fun stuff, and then I'll get into the boring Christian stuff. I know some Irish connection exists, but I never memorized how it is. I mean, Ireland is famously Catholic. Well, at least parts of it are famously Catholic, others are famously not Catholic. But all of Ireland is famously really into the lore around being Catholic or not. Yeah. So, that's, well, you hit the nail on the head there. But it actually, here, I'll just jump right in. So, the festival known as Samhain is spelled Samhain, but it's pronounced Samhain. And it is Irish in its origin, but it's also Scottish and just like Gaelic in general. Like, they did it on both sides of the Irish Sea? What the fuck? Wait. Yeah, Irish Sea. Yeah, I did it.
Something like that. I'm not sure if it's called just the Irish Sea or something else. Could be South Irish Sea or something like that.
I don't remember.
I'm really not sure, but it is Irish Sea a little bit.
Yeah, and the Isle of Man also celebrates it. So, we're going to talk about Samhain and then All Hallowtide, which consists of All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, and All Souls Day. 4 different holidays. But we're starting with the oldest one. And in my notes, I wrote, so in neo-paganism and in modern witchcraft or Wicca, there's 8 different Sabbats. And those are based on the equinoxes and the solstice. And then the other 4 are based on just like the days in between the equinoxes and the solstices. And with this sort of neo-paganism kind of thing, a lot of these are based on traditional established Celtic, Gaelic, or Germanic festivals. And oftentimes these things have their own internal lore based on their own internal stuff that isn't directly related to like paganism. So a lot of times people will talk about Samhain as like this veil between life and death and the day where you connect to the dead, which is like historically relevant, but it also is kind of just related to witchcraft and like how people want to do witchcraft these days. So let's talk about the original one. Samhain is a festival observed for people in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man. A similar festivity was celebrated in Wales, and that was called Calan Gaeaf. Didn't pronounce that correctly. And it's basically the same thing. The festival was held to mark the end of summer and the beginning of winter, because it was based on agricultural cycles more than equinoxes and the positions of the stars. And so this was observed as the beginning of the new year. It took place traditionally on the night of October 31st, because we were working with that calendar by the time that people are writing down when these things take place. And then it just went on into November 1st. And it is thought to be it is thought that the first recorded mention of Samhain in literacy was found at the archaeological Coligny calendar, although this was found in Roman Gaul, aka modern France, in the 2nd century CE. It is just thought that there's the Gaul version of Samhain, which is known as Samonios, and also written down in Roman, and that is most likely, scholars believe that this sort of festivity etymologically comes from an old Gaelic word for summer. And people are like, well, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't take place in summer. It marks the end of summer because we're done with agriculture. So what happens during these Samhain festivals? Well, feasts are held. Animals that were unlikely to survive the winter were slaughtered and feasted upon, as were like non-potable foods that wouldn't survive the winter. So that was like a big time for feasting because it's like we have all the stuff that's not gonna last, let's eat all that and then we'll eat the stuff we save later. But everybody also was like making a festival out of it. So we're drinking mead, we're getting lit. And then the ritual bonfires were important because they're meant to symbolize the sun, because the sun is about to not be seen as often and we want to bring it back. There are also a lot of fairs and performances around the like major Irish kingdoms and castles and holdings and stuff like that. And weirdly enough, a lot of these had horse racing. Like, horse racing was a really big Samhain tradition, especially in Ireland. But other than that, they just did performances and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Irish love their horses, you know? It's something that people don't think about a lot, because horses are usually associated with these, like, plains cultures.
Yeah.
But just, it's kind of Irish people, and I think Icelandic people also, like, really into their little ponies and stuff.
Yeah, and we haven't gone to Iceland, but we did go to Ireland once, and like just from the landscape, it's like hilly, but it's not like mountain, so it's like really nice country for riding on horseback.
Or so you would assume, having never done it, Aaron.
I rode at a horse when I was 4 years old at a birthday party.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I recently was at a like medieval sort of children's event thing. I was there because I, have engaged in some sword fighting. We both have, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And, just hung out there. And so, watched, the sword guys do their sword things. But I was also pony riding, because people always love pony riding. And that pony just had, a fucking half-mast sporting, the entire time. Half an hour or an hour or something. Just extremely... just flopping around. Absolutely funny.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah. Not to get off topic, but that was extremely funny. And it was, the type of, stout horse you'd expect in, the area,
Yeah, I remember you telling me that story, and I found it enchanting. Speaking of what I was talking about, there was also a cultural belief that the transition period between summer and winter was a boundary in which where the other world was thinnest. And so, with Celtic mythology and stuff like that, there's, a kind of other world. And just in translation, these things kind of get a little bit mixed up. But some people are like, oh yeah, that's where the fairies are. That's where the gods are. That's where goblins and scary things are. But it's basically just there is another world, and there are boundaries to get to this other magical world, and they are very thin around Halloween time. And people don't know this as much. They're also equally as thin during the springtime celebration of Beltane when summer's about to start. So the same kind of rules that apply to watch out for these ghosts apply also to spring, which is fun. This means a lot of things for the people culturally. It means that the gods and fairies and assorted magical things can cross over into the real world. But that also means that mortals can accidentally walk across the boundary and get trapped in the other world forever. These passageways were known as seeds, S-I-D-H-E-S, and they were thought to be located in burial grounds where people were getting buried because it's culturally significant. Places where people are getting buried and honored are thought to also be these boundaries into the other world. And as Christianity comes around and synchronizes with these religions, people also had the same belief about these in churchyards and stuff like that. In parts of Ireland and Brittany, it is thought that the dead just came back to life. People are like, yeah, the dead come back to life on Halloween. That's just a known fact. So, as a result, people left food out or prepared dinner for the relatives and had a place open at the hearth, just in case they stopped by. And thinking a little bit hardcore, Scotland decided to go further and don masks to impersonate the dead and just kind of honor their relatives and ancestors and such. And they also took it further, and because there was a general fear that fairies and gods were coming around because the other world boundary is thin, they just wore scary masks to be like, yeah, no, we're part of you don't have to bother us. And so this is the costume lore where that kicks in. And then a little bit with trick-or-treating, because your dead relatives are coming by, you gotta leave food out. But obviously, people are wearing masks and getting up to all manners of chicanery. So especially in Scotland, but just in general, people are pulling pranks. People are like, hey, we're the ghosts and goblins, and just having fun. And so there was another tradition that popped up where you leave food out for the people who are doing pranks so they don't bother you for real. Trick-or-treating happens in a very esoteric way. But it's not that people are just oh, the gods are here, we gotta watch out. People had really specific fears that the gods were going to actively trick you into getting trapped in the other world. And some people were afraid that they were going to replace your baby with changeling babies, which is this concept where it's basically a shapeshifter that looks like your baby, but it's not your baby. We took your real baby. Watch out. And then also some people just thought they would kill you.
What's the consequence of rearing a changeling baby?
I haven't figured that out. I always thought about that.
Because it's you'd think there would be some obvious consequence to it. Like maybe it's just because with these things, it is not always. I think it's a bit of a fallacy to think, this is always based on something, some real dynamic or whatever. Sometimes it's just people coming up with horrific stories. But when you think about changeling baby, maybe it's something you try to explain why some children might be mentally ill to the point of maybe doing damage to their siblings.
No, you're actually onto something. This isn't something I did for research for this note, but I think I remember listening to a ghost story podcast forever ago, and they brought up that a lot of people kind of came up with the changeling lore to describe autism and stuff like that back in the day when people didn't have a word for it. They're like, oh, that child is actually a changeling. It's not my real baby. Because
it acts in a way that's somewhat alien to general societal expectations, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of it. There's probably more than one thing that's a part of it, but yeah, you're onto something. And it's the same thing you were talking about, where people are taking a tradition that actually people believe in, and then they're just having fun with it, which is kind of how you get I'm dressing up with the mask of my ancestors to honor my ancestors, and then some teens in 1200 Scotland are I'm dressing up as my ancestors. I'm throwing eggs at your house. Just kind of that vibe.
Yeah.
But you get the gist. Halloween kind of has a lot of different things going on, especially because the culture of Scotland and the culture of Ireland and then also Brittany, France aren't one-to-one. So little bits of Halloween lore kind of bleed into Samhain. Samhain isn't just one thing. It's mostly just a collection of regional beliefs that have to deal with this harvest festival type thing. And now I will get into All Hallows Tide, which is actually very also informative on how we have Halloween traditions nowadays, because with these Celtic traditions, a lot of them took onto Christianity very early on, but they didn't just abandon their old beliefs. There was a synchronization thing going on where you believe in fairies and also God at the same time. You're oh yeah, Jesus is actually on top, but there are some gods, and some people are oh, fairies are real, but those are actually what the demons are from hell. So you kind of got a marrying of things going on. That's how Christianity took off early. And this is actually a big reason why All Hallows Eve took off. But not the main reason. And this is what you were talking about earlier, because we were talking about this yesterday. But All Hallow Tide is what's known as a triduum. And that is a series of festivals that lasts 3 days. At first, you have All Hallows Eve, which is mostly just a vigil to help prepare you for the feast in the morning. And it mostly just involves fasting and praying and not doing much else. And this takes place on actual Halloween. Actually, I think I have this later in the notes, but that's where the word Halloween comes from. It's just a shortening of All Hallows Evening, All Hallows Evening, All Halloween. So, there you go. And then you have All Saints' Day. This is what we were talking about. This is November 1st. And that is a feast to just memorialize all the saints and martyrs, especially since not every saint has a saint day. But you also still just, memorialize all saints in general, not just the ones that don't have a day. They just made the holiday because it's we have too many left over. We have to make sure everybody's accounted for. But then everyone's I still love my normal saint. My saint's cool as hell. So they didn't stop celebrating them on All Saints' Day. And then you have the third day, which is All Souls' Day, where you just celebrate all good Christians everywhere. And that's on November 2nd. There's a bit of contention around the significance of All Hallows Eve, because the significance is pretty much entirely, we're preparing for the cool holiday tomorrow. And a lot of scholars believe that the significance of All Hallows Eve is just to placate people who had traditions on that day already, Samhain. And so they're just oh, you guys are celebrating? Yeah, we're celebrating too. We're celebrating for the cool holiday that's tomorrow. So you can keep doing what you're doing. Although, not every scholar agrees that that's the case. What else we got? Oh, I also found an additional fourth holiday called the International Day of Prayer for the Persecuted Church, which honors just people who were getting persecuted in the name of Christianity. But that one came about in the 20th century. They just wanted to add more days to All Hallow Tide. I think I also found another one that comes on the second Sunday of November. And that one came out in 2019, I think. That was the Day of Prayer. They really want to drive All Hallow Tide home. In my notes I have, All Hallowtide isn't just a random hostile takeover of Gaelic traditions completely. It was actually a matter of great debate within the, like, Catholic Church because of what we were talking about earlier. They really wanted to find a day for all of the saints. And originally, in the 7th century, that's where this is coming about, around 610 CE, theologians wanted to have this day be held in the middle of May. But in 730, around 120 years later, they changed it to Halloween. And scholars believe this is because they wanted to co-opt the traditions that people were having in general in the regions that they wanted this to take off in, like Ireland and Scotland. But some scholars think they just didn't want it to be close to Easter, because like there's too much celebrating in spring. And they needed to put the holiday somewhere that there wasn't too much celebrating, which is a silly reason. Weirdly enough, even though this is like 710 CE, like there's a lot of contention as to why this happened, to the point where Wikipedia says that it was, quote, perhaps, established by Pope Gregory III, as if there's like a point of contention as who the Pope was at the time. I don't know why Wikipedia worded it that way with perhaps. I thought that was funny.
What was there a footnote with it?
Well, there wasn't.
Oh.
I think people just were like putting stuff in the Wikipedia article.
Yeah, usually those at this point come with like something like, tends to be something like by who when there's like something like there's someone.
Yeah, you get the little number in the brackets that I rely
that too,
on.
but there is also now a more. I guess it's kind of like on one hand, sort of for people editing the articles to be like, oh, this is where we should do more research, but it's also for people to like kind of provoke their thoughts a little bit and not just accept something where it's like, oh,
yeah,
perhaps what this guy or whatever. I think it's like they have like a cute bit about there where it's like they explain the concept and it's many people say alligators are really great and it's just like an alligator saying that.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just like that side about Wikipedia. They like to provoke your thoughts a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Because they want you to not just like read it and take it as fact. They want you to understand that this is like one edited by people, and on the other hand, like it doesn't replace thinking about certain stuff.
Yeah. Wanted to talk about how this is like weirdly hard to research in the year 2025. I don't know if this was the case 5 or 6 years ago, but when you type in All Hallowtide, at least like when I was researching it, all of the top websites are these like Christian fundamentalist websites that are like, here's the real holiday that's going on in fall. None of that Halloween stuff. And it's just an article on like some church's page. It's just like crazy to me. I don't want to start a new conspiracy that the church is trying to like get rid of Halloween, because I don't think they're going to ever pull it off, because a lot of people like Halloween, but I have a genuine, like, for a moment I was like, are they really trying to go for just like, guys, stop celebrating Halloween, here's the cool holiday.
Yeah.
It's like off the internet right now. And that just is probably the state of the algorithm right now. I don't know if that will always be the case, but I thought that was really funny.
I suppose it would be the stuff that generates the most engagement.
Yeah.
It's quite, because like, you also got to think of like who is like just face value researching something like this. And
yeah.
Oftentimes it's gonna be like it's gonna get more traffic when some church has all their people kind of read the article, so it's automatically gonna be pushed to the front because it's just not very popular topic in general.
Yeah, and then the people who like are interested in witchcraft lore, like me, are very rarely gonna be like, yeah, but what do the Christians think?
Yeah.
Like there's like a. It's just the way that the algorithm works, that nobody's doing this thing that I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah.
Stupid. I'm almost finished with my notes, but the last couple things I wanted to talk about. Halloween kicked off in America, and then because America's like a big cultural juggernaut, it is slowly kicking off in other places. But it really only kicked out when Scottish and Irish immigrants came to America and then kind of just like kept their traditions up. However, there were always like harvest festivals going on, because harvest festivals are always going to happen anywhere there's a harvest. Just a very easy holiday to celebrate. And so like there were early American settlers. Like, I'm going to do a Sleepy Hollow episode next. Keep watch out for that. And like obviously everybody in that book is Dutch. They're not doing any Samhain stuff, but they're still having a harvest festival because it's, going to be winter and we have all this excess produce that won't keep. So let's eat and make a bunch of baked goods. And those married. Proud of my notes. And so, in order to save my voice, I open the floor to you. Unless you want me to get into my first one first.
No, I can get on my first one first.
Cool.
It's actually gonna be a Halloween in a fictional universe, but it is still regular Halloween because the fictional setting for my first pick is a role-playing game universe that goes back quite a bit called Shadowrun, which is probably most famous for the fact that, like, on one hand, it is a cyberpunk setting, so it is set, I believe, currently in the 2060s. That I think is where the most recent edition of the role-playing game is set. But the twist it has is that there was a sort of confluence of spheres that happened sometime in the 2000s, I think it was. I don't have all the dates perfectly saved in my head, but I believe it was something like the 2000s. And during this confluence, fantastical beasts and other, entities started entering our world. And this really means that, like, a lot of D&D stuff kind of got added into the Shadowrun setting. So you have mages, you have orcs, and things such as orcs, dwarves, and trolls are sapient beings, and they are actually called meta-humans because what happened was that they didn't just enter our world, but rather humans were transformed into them during this sort of confluence. I believe there's also, like, a name for the confluence that isn't confluence. It might be called awakening or something like that, but effectively that's kind of what it is. Like, the world was normal, and then the awakening happened, and then we had magic and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the gist I know. I'm not the Shadowrun guy. Like, I haven't read enough of it. I kind of just absorbed some of the information from you.
I tried reading novels set in it, and I had a good time at first, but it was a painfully long novel. Like, literally, it was an anthology, but even so, the first book of it, I think I had been reading for several days, and I was at like 20% on my ebook reader. It felt as though the first part of the book was as long as, like, an entire book, and then you just have these... Back in the day, people really used to do this more, where they would play a role-playing game and then write a novel based on some campaign.
Oh god, yeah, like Dragonlance.
Yes, it was very much like Dragonlance, and that's what kind of ended up turning me off from it, even though I was originally kind of into it because it did have a dragon, which I appreciate. The general plot was alright, but I just... Eventually, it kind of did... Again, what I get from these books, where it's kind of a campaign put to novel, is that they have these very unsatisfying arcs to them. Because, they happen in these arcs that are based on when sessions start and end, which is always like going to be a compromise to some degree, because obviously, like, you're going to have to stop the session if it's been going on for 4 hours and the pizza's out. So now in the book, that sometimes then, like, just ends up being the end of a chapter, even though it doesn't really make narrative sense. And there's, of course, there's, like, cleaning up to be done. I'm not saying that, like, every book based on something like this is bad, but it does lend itself to that problem.
You can, like, palpably see the limitations.
Yeah.
I think that's why, like, D&D podcasts go hard, because, like, you really kind of just lock in and you force yourself to a rigid schedule where you have to be like, guys, no eating for 4 hours. We're doing this recorded and live.
And possibly even, like, re-record stuff. And also, it's definitely... I will say the actual play in general, it is great. I need to listen to it a little bit more, because it's really like an audiobook, so you have to pay a little bit more attention than if you're just listening to some easy-listening podcasts, such as this one. But I also do like to think that some of them are a little bit annoying in their own way.
I think I'm only actively engaged in not another D&D podcast.
Yes, so I actually engaged in a couple more, but I really keep coming back to that one because I think it's like a comfort thing, and you really need to just enjoy the company of these people, like, way more than in other podcasts, because you're just kind of stuck with them for, like, a while.
Yeah, and you're stuck with them not just, like, talking, but they're also going to be doing bits.
And I tried to do this other thing about, I would, like, find a role-playing setting, and I would try to get into it by just kind of listening to podcasts about it, but it doesn't really always work, because I'll be like, I want, like, to see what the system's like, but then you got, like, an hour of them just doing role-playing, and then they do a roll, and they don't really explain how the rolls work, and I think and I'm not, I'm not gonna name drop the podcast because I don't remember it, and it also doesn't matter. But it was just, I believe, like a Pathfinder actual play, and I thought it was weirdly stilted, and so I then look into it online or in the show notes, and they made like a conscious effort to stay family friendly. I was like, man, that is so. It's not even that I'm like opposed to that as a concept, especially because some people just don't like crude humor or whatever.
Yeah, but then you're not the audience for that. Like,
exactly.
You're gonna notice, not the censoring, but you're gonna notice whenever they're like making the effort to cut themselves off.
Yeah, it's also like, it's immediately like, because everything is like manufactured when it's a recorded thing. It's like there's never like true authenticity to anything when it's like a recorded and presented to the public thing. But even so, there's like the suspension of disbelief that is lost for me when I realize that these people are like making an effort not to swear, even though they're like adult people.
Yeah.
Who like most likely very definitely swear.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't want to get too far off track here, because one thing that happened during the confluence of spheres, which is the name from The Witcher, but I just cannot remember what it is in Shadowrun. One thing that happened is that a lot of natural religions, I'm just gonna call them for now, gained a lot of hard power through this confluence because they were more, in tune with the sort of magic that was always in some way present in the world that now was like a very active and very easy to manipulate force.
Mm-hmm.
There are, in fact, like there's like, magic in general, but there's also like shamanistic magic in Shadowrun. This has led, because this is an old role-playing system, I believe it started out in the 80s or maybe 90s, there's a lot of problematic stuff that came. There's some problematic stuff, there's some stuff that I think is pretty cool, but some results of this are that, for example, I believe Ireland is just actually Tirnanock now.
Okay.
So it's just straight up, the old sort of Celtic, well, not a paradise, but sort of this like other worlds that, because there it was like the strongest, so when the confluence happened, that's where now the elves live.
Yeah, okay.
It's quite funny, and I mean, this one's like over the top, so it's fine. There's also Native American tribes, because again, it's 80s, 90s, and we're they gained a lot of power through this confluence, and then they like managed to declare independence from the United States through that. But they did so through summoning like animal spirits and attacking the U.S. Army.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and
it goes hard and then it stops going. Like it's. I think it goes hard.
It was probably quite. It was to be considered maybe pretty progressive back in the day, because it was like, oh yeah, look, the natives are actually in charge now. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
There's also Central America. And Central America actually plays a big role religiously in Shadowrun, because one of the biggest megacorps in the setting is called Ats Technology, and they.
I'm gonna jump into this one.
Yes, it is a pretty fucking funny name.
That's so fucking funny.
It's called Ats Technology, and they do engage in somewhat of a like neo-Aztec religion, and that is sort of it has been a bit of a ride with that one as far as the lore is concerned. I remember playing, I think it was the Shadowrun that's set in Berlin, and you video games. I don't know which one it was. I believe it was something with dragon. But anyways, you raid an Ats Technology facility in that one, and you go in there, and they just have a blood sacrifice lab that they're running.
Oh yeah.
Because again, like Ats Technology, much more than other mega corporations in the setting, are not just purely profit-oriented, but are also religiously motivated because they believe in this neo-Aztec religion.
That's insane.
But, this is just to kind of give you a bit of an idea of what the setting is like, and Halloween in the setting is still the same Halloween that we right now, experience. I'm not sure how sort of widespread Christianity is in the setting. I know that it definitely has lore, because there's like a lot of Shadowrun lore, and over the years there has been, I believe that the makers of the setting are quite liberal and giving away sort of like supplement rights. So I know that when I used to go to sort of RPG conventions in Germany where they just had board games and role-playing stuff, there was always like smaller stalls of guys just writing supplements for Shadowrun, and it's very, very popular in Germany. So I actually remember when I was there once, I saw they had just a supplement for Hamburg about the Admiralty that kind of is in charge there.
Oh god, yeah, they're gonna get really specific about their own.
Yeah, it's because it's just it's quite funny to just kind of look at a map and go, oh yeah, I can turn this into a fantasy setting now. It's just fun to kind of go with that. I know that this type of role playing also is very popular in Vampire the Masquerade because that's just quite literally our world. Yeah. So you can literally, I know that when people LARP for Vampire the Masquerade, they sometimes don't even dress up. Because it's just oh yeah, they're gonna say, oh, I'm a brewer vampire, which is just they're just gonna wear normal clothes and just hang out and talk about politics maybe, type stuff. And so it's quite interesting to have these RPG settings that lend themselves very well to basically just invite you to do homebrew because the maps are just there. We're actually playing a role-playing game right now called Delta Green that is also just set in our world at this time, pretty much in this time period. And so it's just so easy to and other things you'd have to sort of come up with, oh, you want to go from one end of the city to the next, how are you going to do that? But in games like that, you just open up Google Maps and take a look at it. So that's quite fun.
God, that's
right, but Halloween in the setting, like I said, still the same Halloween we have. So kids are going to run around and get, go trick-or-treating. They're going to put on costumes that are, of course, more inspired by the settings. So they're gonna dress up as Shadowrunners, which are these sort of mercenary troops that are going around working for the corporations, raiding corporate facilities and such. On the German sort of Shadowrun database called the Shadow Helix, there's also something about authentic Dunkelzahn costumes, and Dunkelzahn, and I believe he is just also called that in English Shadowrun is a real kind of lore character.
Yeah, I know who this is.
Yeah, he's one of dragons in the setting are quite a big deal because they are actually one of the entities that's just kind of entered the world. And Dunkelzahn is a big guy in the setting. I believe he's dead by now because he was assassinated after he became president of the United States.
President Dragon.
But yeah, for the longest time he was in charge of one of the big mega corporations and very very prominent figure unlike many other dragons because he just liked to be very public about him. And so people dress up as him for Halloween. It's cute in a weird way.
Not to tank the mood completely, but I guess we do that in the modern day. I went to Spirit Halloween when we were in America, and I definitely saw fucking Donald Trump costumes.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And despite all that though, this is a, dark future setting from the 80s, so aside from kids just going trick-or-treating in fun little costumes, you also just have kind of these riots that happen around Halloween. There's even a whole gang in Seattle called the Halloweeners, which is a great name.
Did they think about it, or did they do that accidentally?
It's a good question, but I believe this is straight up lore, not just came up by German ones. So
okay.
I don't know. It's fine. They fire weapons and doing getting really high on drugs and doing attacks on the general public.
That's doing drugs and then getting a weapon. A flamethrower, actual fire.
Big into flamethrowers. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, those are some hobbies.
It's it's very 80s and how they kind of saw living in urban spaces
in Seattle.
Yeah.
That's I think we were just, this is to date the podcast, I think we were just talking about the Antifa protests in Portland and how they're just dressing up as inflatable fucking dinosaurs and stuff like that, and the media is really trying to be the war-torn streets of Portland.
Yeah.
And
pretty much it's still this idea that is informed by. There was this great Onion article about your uncle that still actually believes that Warriors was a documentary.
So I'm excited about Warriors musical. Did I not tell you about the Warriors musical?
No, you told me about it, but I don't have that much.
Lin-Manuel Miranda Warriors musical.
Yeah, no, that'll be good. We should watch the movie before that, though.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right, but the night before Halloween in Shadowrun it's actually known in the United States as Devil's Night because that's kind of where it happens.
Okay, wait, I hate to interrupt you. I thought Devil's Night was specifically a Detroit thing because I think I didn't know about it until I moved to Detroit for college, and Devil's Night is the night before Halloween where you go on a bunch of pranks and stuff, and I think it's I'm probably wrong there, but I think people from Detroit were yeah, that's our thing.
Yeah, it's funny. That's interesting to know. In this one, they just kind of like also do like tricks and pranks, but the pranks are like burning metahumans with flamethrowers. This thing is also extremely racist because they have like. I think for the longest time it was like a big thing that orcs were basically just black people. In fact, like down to because I believe that the sort of population makeup is very similar when you look at like, or this is like the amount of humans, this is the amount of orcs, and the amount of orcs is like pretty much the exact same as the amount of black people in the United States at the time. Oh my god! Yeah, it was pretty horrid. It's they also like form gangs and have like a sort of African American vernacular way of speaking. This has gotten a lot better.
Yeah, but this is like giving me 80s fantasy role playing vibes, hardcore.
Very much, and even. A lot less defensible because again this is like based on our worlds. Yeah. And it's much more direct sort of ways of kind of engaging with it. Right, but that being said, yeah, the Halloweeners, burning people, doing drugs, the riots type of thing. In the place called Aztlan, which I believe is former Mexico. Yes, it's pretty much all of. It's sort of a successor state to Mexico, but encompasses pretty much all of Central America because, again, like Aztec technology as a corporation has been furthering this goal of sort of reawakening these old Aztec religions and Central American religions. So Aztlan is the place that is pretty much all of Central America, and they still observe the Dia de los Muertos, Muertes,
which I don't speak Spanish.
Yes. Right, there's not much to say about that. It still exists. That's pretty much it. It's probably not like thought through too well because I think it's like a Catholic holiday more so than a Aztec holiday.
Yeah, I think I was like thinking about doing more research into it, but I did a cursory Google search on it earlier, and I think it was like explicitly a Catholic thing that was brought to Mexico just as a result of All Hallowtide, but they just had a lot of extra stuff to it. I think some scholars think that there was something going on around the time back in the day, but I don't think that's a universally agreed upon opinion. I think it's mostly Catholic.
Right, so I was gonna go ahead and go through the article a little bit more to like pick up some other neat little things. There appears to be a terrorist organization that tried to kill 15 people in 11 cities in what was called the Halloween murders of 2073.
17 people?
No, 15 attempts at murder, and 11 of those were successful, actually. Okay. There was, again, concerning it's called like the Infected. I don't know what they're actually doing. Apparently it's vampire related, so just vampire kids kind of killing people on Halloween. That's a thing. Yeah. One thing that I thought was quite funny, especially in regards to what this podcast is that in, like I said, in the setting, like Wiccan religion is very real. Like you are very much able to sort of summon these old Celtic concepts, and they're all based on this sort of Wiccan movement.
Oh, okay. So they have like the Celtic pantheon, but the Wiccan aesthetics.
I believe so, yeah. Again, I haven't looked quite a lot into it.
I guess that's my bag a little bit. I'm speaking from memory, so some of this is probably wrong. But I know that, like, Wicca... I don't know if it started with Gerald Gardner, but, like, straight up Wicca was, like, an early 20th century thing from a guy... They just have the two gods, which is, like, the horn god and the moon goddess. And they're vaguely based on Celtic things, but they're kind of just, like, an all-encompassing... These are the two gods who worship, but you can have your pantheon if you want. And so, like, Wicca and Celtic religions are friends, but it's not like Wiccans celebrate all of the Celtic gods.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. And this one's just funny because the Wiccans are, like, really uppity about Halloween, as they are in the real world. Just in this one, they actually do magic during it. So they retreat to the wilderness and try to summon stuff. Apparently, this is a day in which they're even able to summon the Wild Hunt, which is, like, also things that are on. Because, again, this is all just taken from the general folklore there.
You just get lore and you have a fun time.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the whole vibe of the setting, and that's what I think is so interesting about this take on Halloween, is that really all of Shadowrun is this looking at magic and being like, what if this was real in our time? Or like looking at fantasy and being like, oh, what if it was real in our time? And so Halloween, in a lot of ways, is kind of quite the Halloween in the setting is just like that.
Yeah.
It's, what if all the stuff that the witches are saying is actually real, and they can, summon stuff right now.
Yeah, that's really, yeah. I think that's just a fun concept. And it can go into the weird racism or cultural appropriation angles quickly, but, when you don't do that, it's fun.
It's quite funny. They also do mention Samhain here.
Samhain. It's pronounced absolutely not how it looks.
Yeah, no, it's usually like that with Celtic stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how Shadowrun does it. And like I said, it's not really fictional as much as a, sort of thinking our Halloween to its conclusion. If all of it were real or easy to do with magic and such.
Yeah, it's actually convenient that you bring up the kind of real world but not real world one, because the first one I wanted to tackle was Night in the Woods, which isn't the real world. I'm good at speaking, which isn't the real world. But obviously Night in the Woods has a very specific Rust Belt America aesthetic, just without saying it. And I'm ready to just jump right into that, unless you have any more notes on Shadowrun.
You can go right ahead.
Thank you. I think I just dropped my interjections and notes as you talk, so I like it. They just took it to this natural conclusion, like you said, and it's a banger. Alrighty, Night in the Woods. Maybe you've heard of it. If you're a furry, you have. It is a video game that came out in 2017, and it is one of my all-time favorite video games. The holiday in question is called simply Harvest Festival, but the citizens of Possum Springs call it Harfest. I also put in my notes, this is going to be really funny. You and I are going to be discussing lore that we both know intimately. We both played this game twice. Yeah. And we're just going to be sitting here the main character is May Borowski, and if you don't know her, she's this cat. And the thing is, she just dropped out of school. So this is going to be really awkward, I think, but we're going to power through it.
Sure.
Night in the Woods was released in 2017 and mostly designed by and programmed by creators Alec Halauka and Scott Benson, with additional work done by artists and programmers Bethany Hockenberry, John Manning, and Paris Butfield Addison. This game was actually originally a Kickstarter game, which I didn't know, because I think I first played it in... I actually first played it in 2017, after the funding was reached. So I was in it to win it. But what I didn't know is that they were like, can we please have $50,000? And the internet was like, would you like to quadruple that? We want to play this game more than anything.
That happened with a lot of Kickstarter projects. I think very few Kickstarter projects just hit their goal and are done with that. Because once they hit their goal, I think people just kind of want to jump in on it. That's
especially if there's perks, and I think with stuff like this, one of the perks is you just get to download the game, so it's just people pre-ordering it.
Yes, it's interesting because it's either you don't make your goal or you significantly go above it. So that's kind of how Kickstarter was, at least back then.
I'm glad I worked out in this case because they made the game, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. I also wrote in my notes that I got too scared to load the game up again and play it properly because I knew I was going to suffer emotional damage. So all of this is based on wikis and stuff I found online because I was too afraid to play. And this is the section that's going to be really awkward to read. Night in the Woods is a 2D platformer, technically, but it's also a bit of an exploration game because your environment is a small town known as Possum Springs. It is also a furry game in that all of the characters are anthropomorphic animals, but I don't think Scott Benson is a furry yet. I think Scott Benson goes online and interacts with furries all the time, but I don't think Scott has made the jump. The main character that you play is a black cat named May Borowski, who just came home to her hometown of Possum Springs after dropping out of college. Possum Springs is an old coal mining town in an Appalachian-esque area of an unnamed country that's basically America. And the game isn't explicitly going to say these names out loud, but it's just kind of mentioned by Scott Benson that the inspiration for this is Appalachia, Rust Belt type towns. So they just, that's what it is. The other main characters are a cool fox who does crimes and works at a 7-Eleven type place, and his name is Greg. And he has a boyfriend who is a bear named Angus who works at a DVD rental store. And then there's B, short for Beatrice, who is a crocodile who smokes cigarettes and works for the hardware store. And then there's also a bird named Germ, and he doesn't have a job. I also wrote in my notes that usually the Halloween of a story is like a very tangential, fun lore thing. That is not the case for Night in the Woods. Halloween is the plot, because the entire game takes place throughout Harvest Festival, and it involves just like the things that happen in the town in the week that Harvest Festival takes place. So there are actual spoilers that I'm going to be talking about, and not just fun Halloween lore. Future Forseti, if somehow a furry member of my audience hasn't played Night in the Woods yet, timestamp where there's no spoilers, and we can get on to the next story. In order to avoid Night in the Woods spoilers, skip ahead to 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 38 seconds. But the gameplay evolves around just kind of exploring, doing 2-day stuff. There's some minigames, and there's some Guitar Hero sections. But let's talk about the Harfest. This game, I kind of like knew it going in, because I like love this game a lot. It has a mythology to it. So this game has like a church in it, right? And it has saints. But there's no Christianity. It's like an actual ambiguous religion.
This is something I've been seeing more and more, especially in sort of free media.
Yeah.
This, I know in Deltarune, it is also very much like this, where we have this obvious Christianity analog that just isn't Christianity.
Yeah.
It's interesting because obviously Christianity is a big part of a lot of furry's life. So
yeah.
It's like a desire to sort of, work with it, but at the same time it's extremely hard to work with Christianity without just focusing on the negative aspects of it. So
yeah, and you can't just like focus on Bible stories and lore, because to a lot of Christians there's a lot more than the Bible stories to your daily life. But you also can't avoid it, because like the furries that are making, or Scott Benson, who are making these stories, are setting them in rural America analogs.
Yes.
So you can't ignore it, which is like crazy.
It's quite interesting, yeah, especially because it's such a like central topic to so many people, and yet it's so hard to talk about it, because often what people remember about a religion is less so the theological contents, but rather the sort of community about it.
Yeah.
I think that's also why there's such an odd resurgence of, this kind of idea of Christian values. It's really just cargo culting this old sense of community that has kind of been lost over the years. But it didn't really have anything to do with Christianity as much as with the fact that, towns just used to be organized very differently compared to today.
Yeah, and then like it was kind of expected that everyone went to church, so like church became this community center where you get to see your neighbors and talk to them.
Yeah, it's not like every single family and every person, or even a majority of them, were vividly into every sermon, but everyone liked to go to the potluck, and everyone liked to kind of meet and chat with people.
Yeah, I went to church until I was like 10, and I don't think my parents are like, I think my parents are still Christian, but like they're not like in it to win it in terms of like fundamentalism. So we just went to church just because it's like you see the community.
For me, it was probably my confirmation, because I'm German Lutheran. This was like this event that was going to happen at some point.
Yeah,
and it's quite interesting how these events are just sort of these things that sort of happen to you. Yeah, it's quite interesting, and it's interesting to see it being treated in a bit of a, in a way that sort of isolates the community aspect more so than it does just the theological nature of it.
Yeah, and I think it's crazy with like Night in the Woods specifically. I think Deltarune, to some degree, is a little ambiguous, but Night in the Woods is like extremely ambiguous with like what the actual religion is. May's mom works in the church, and you go to the church if you want to do 100% of the game. You go to the church every day to see your mom and do like a conversation with your mom, but I don't think there's ever a single conversation where she talks about the religion in detail.
You meet the priest also, and like he's a sympathetic character, but he doesn't talk about religion necessarily.
Yeah, and I think I have this in my notes later, but there's literally the fire-breathing Pope bird, and May's just like, oh yeah, that's the fire-breathing Pope, and that's the extent that you know about the lore of a statue that's in front of a church in a small town that the designers just designed.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool.
I don't want to go like too far aside here. I just think it's the sort of artistic interaction with Christianity in this era is fascinating to me. It's because I played the game Blasphemous, which was like based on Catholic folklore in Spain, and it is very interesting to sort of see this fantasy setting that is entirely based on Catholicism and immediately recognizable as, this dogmatic, Catholic, sort of inquisitorial take on the Catholic Church, yet it doesn't at any point resemble the actual theological contents of Christianity.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of left examining the imagery of it, and this imagery is just horrifyingly brutal in so many aspects.
Yeah.
And I believe this...
Just how Bible stories are.
Yes, and I believe this sort of distancing yourself from the actual contents of Christianity is a great way to kind of work through what may cause things such as religious anxiety, but also in equal amounts, the sense of community you get from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I took for granted, because I was, going into this, because Night in the Woods has I don't remember if it was, DLC or, something else. I think it was, a pre-DLC where you get to play a little game, but there was The Longest Night and then The Lost Constellation, which I never ended up playing. But The Longest Night is, a Christmas kind of analog, and I think a lot of the saint lore either pops up in these two pre-games or when you talk to the astronomer character, and none of the, constellations really have anything to do with Harvest Festival, but the religion is kind of just assumed to be a part of Harvest Festival.
Yeah.
I think there's a church bake sale, but also there's another thing. I didn't know this at first, but the church is officially called the Church of the First Coalescence. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
That's so cool. However, the other thing about Night in the Woods, and this is the main spoiler of the game, is that there's a cult in it, and the cult is worshipping an actual deity in the woods, or gas leaks, but they think there's a real deity in the woods. That's the Black Goat. And not only is there the Black Goat, but there's also the Cat God, which appears to Mae Borowski in her dreams, which is assumed to be an entirely unrelated deity to the Black Goat. So you have the church and the ambiguous lore, and then you have literal gods or a gas leak. I think that's also the other ambiguous part, is that, there's no clear answer if everyone's hallucinating or if there's actual literal magic going on.
There's also ambiguity in that the cult resembles these sort of secret societies that were around in many American small towns.
Yeah.
They just kind of take on this sinister, not from the fucking Atari game, sinister, tone when you consider, when you have this kind of secret society of some old town, you're like, oh yeah, this is just like the Saturday club for the guys.
Yeah, the Freemasons.
But then, once the town starts becoming more derelict, once it kind of loses its luster over time, this is sort of a take on it that is quite dark. And I talked about sort of cargo culting, and I believe that is a big theme of the game, is cargo culting in the old days, because you think we were good because we did all these things, when the truth is that it's just it's a very harsh truth, is that you are not invulnerable to the way that the economy is just going to leave you behind once it doesn't have any use for you.
Yeah.
That you have these for some people it is decades of memories of flourishing town, and the town then just goes to hell, and you can't do anything about it, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it, and that's that can make you feel quite powerless, because putting your life or your stock into a community that already feels like you're surrendering the self to a certain degree.
Yeah, and that's the tertiary thing about the games, is that they're idealizing the past when there's also clear evidence when you're in the library microfiche scene or just in any lore that the town wasn't great to live in. Miners got killed all the time. There were worker union protests where people got killed. And so they're idealizing something that didn't even exist in the first place. Night in the Woods is a fucking good game.
It's quite a good game, even if you don't go too deep into the lore. It's just a good story and a good artistic direction.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's easily one of a top 5 game for me.
I don't re-rank games anymore.
Yeah, I don't rank it either, but it's in an abstract way. Because if I actually ranked it, it'd be fucking Guitar Hero. And Roller Coaster Tycoon. So that brings us to Harfest, because this game takes place over a week or something, and I think one of the chapters is the actual festival is happening. I think there's Halloween decorations going on. I don't think they ever call it Halloween in name, but there are pumpkins, and there are costumes, and there are trick-or-treating. But the weird thing that this game does is that there's an actual literal festival that's really reminiscent of small-time, like, summer fairs. I don't know if you get these in Germany, but, like, with the booths pop up and you got, like, dunk tanks and, like, you're throwing darts at a balloon and there's, like, bake sales and stuff like that.
We have something. Like, I know that, like, my town has something like that where we just did, like, I think this is also something that's very well known in America. Is, like, whatever crop you have in your town, that, like, you're gonna have the crop fest. For us, it was asparagus.
I think for us, we just kind of did everything on the 4th of July. Schoolcraft, Michigan, where I was born, is a very small town, but they really went hard for the 4th of July. It wasn't related to the crops.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was like, we had the biggest fireworks show in that area of Michigan, like, including the big cities.
You know, I don't want to go on another side, but it's funny that you mentioned sort of going hard on this, like, these small town events, because I remember taking you to the Christmas market of my little village, and I was hating it because it just wasn't as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
And then I kind of talked with my dad about it, and he was like, well, yeah, it isn't as good anymore, but also people just don't feel like doing all this free labor for basically nothing.
Yeah.
My stepmom told me about how, like, yeah, she had, like, an aunt who, like, just had to bake, like, 4 fucking cakes for every single event in the village. And if she wasn't around, it would be like, yeah, well, who the fuck's gonna make the cakes? And it was just expected of you as, like, you know, a part of the community, and people just
needed their cakes.
Yeah, and it's funny because people talk about sense of community, but sense of community also comes with a big sense of obligation.
Yeah.
So, and it's just people just don't have time for that necessarily anymore, especially in a world where you can follow your own interests so much more easily. And
yeah.
So it's like this big trade-off, I suppose.
Yeah, there's like a benefit to having that community and a loss to it. The Christmas markets, now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't write this in those notes because I was extremely on my, like, American small town summer fair vibe. But Harfest is really Christmas market coded. I think I remember, because, like, it's not like we're doing, like, carnival rides and stuff like that. And Weihnachtsmarkt don't have that many, like, carnival games. I think Harfest had them. But I think it's very small town Christmas market coded for, like, Germany. What else did I have in my notes? Yeah, there's pumpkins and decorations everywhere. Also, I think, like, it's never explicitly stated, but a lot of the mythology has this kind of basis on Eastern Europe vibes. I just think Scott Benson and Alec Halawika have an interest in, like, Eastern European things. There's some of the constellations that...
I did get that impression from the constellations, at least.
Yeah.
I can't really quote anything or put my finger on it, but I did get the impression.
Yeah, and I think because they were going to do the next game, which is Revenant Hill, and I think that ended up getting canceled, but that was, like, going to be explicitly about, I think there was, like, a witch character.
It got canceled? Really?
Yeah, it got canceled.
Oh, wow.
I think Scott Benson had a health crisis, and they had to stop production of it.
I remember that one of the members of the development team of Night in the Woods committed suicide.
Oh.
Which also was a big blow to everyone that was involved with the project. So
okay, maybe there's a combination of those two things.
It is very sad to hear about all that.
Yeah, I'm sorry to break the news now on Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, that game's... Yeah, because I was excited about that one, but, like, obviously I'm not going to force them to do it.
It's kind of interesting that it just got canceled. It's...
Yeah.
Was it, like, outright canceled? Was it put on hiatus or something?
I'm pretty sure it's canceled. Yeah.
Horrible, yeah.
So if I'm wrong, then great, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's canceled.
That's true.
Yeah. Some of the constellation stories that I included just to get a flavor of, like, what the lore is like. You have Corvin the Thief, who is a skilled thief who tried to steal from a pope. And I don't think it's like an actual pope. I think May just calls the constellation a pope. Because May is crazy. Corvin the Thief ended up getting executed by archery and suffered from 200 arrows. But he was so skilled of a thief that he's able to slip out of his own body and escape into the night. And then there was also the fire-breathing pope. I think the astronomer only drops the slightest bit of lore, but his name is Rubello. And he vanquished another potential pope by breathing fire on him. And then you have, I think there was the mention of, like, actual gods, because, like, there was Castus, who tried to build a tower to heaven, but then the gods bound her in a straitjacket and threw her to the ocean, but she was never able to drown. And then there is also the whale that the world is based on. Like, the world is on the back of a whale. And then there's also the bell that chimes when the whale is to catch on fire and throw the world off of its back. So that's just some of the mythology that they invented for this game, which is like never explicitly talked about by any of the characters, but it's such a crazy thing to happen in the background, especially since like the quote unquote canon gods, like the cat god in May's Dream or the black goat, don't relate to any of the constellations. It's just like the ambiguity of this lore goes so fucking crazy. I think last but not least, I was like gonna talk about just the Harfist himself. There was a fortune teller there, I think, which is like another crazy little like, where's this coming from? And then they also did the play where like you do the town history, and then the janitor character shows up.
The janitor character is quite the enigma in the game, I suppose.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing. I think there's like, well, like obviously there's the ambiguity because maybe it's a gas leak, but May's grandpa shows up in the church if you sleep in the church. So like ghosts are real.
Well, yeah. It's quite interesting because I was just sleeping there.
Yeah.
And so it could just be like, I think that one in particular has this air of one of these like half sleep dreams.
Yeah.
Where it's sort of half asleep and you just like, you know, it could just be that she's picturing him being with her in that moment. So
yeah.
Could also be. It's like again, it's a very ambiguous game, so
it's so ambiguous, and I think that's the point I wanted to make is that I kind of have a really big love for Harfest because it explains none of the mythology. They're just doing small town America Halloween festivities, completely divorced from the mythology that exists and people actually believe in. But there's still echoes of it that bleed into what people are doing. And it's kind of just how Halloween is these days if you don't like have the ultra Christians who are politicizing it or witches who want to bring it back to witchy. Like most people are kind of just doing that.
It also kind of goes with a general theme of this game of, you know, you have all these kind of forces working to try to change the course of the universe, and yet the like core of the game that makes you sad is that, you know, your best friend is going to move away from the town and you can't hold down a job, and your other best friend is like really miserable because she has to you know, do the family business which she never wanted to do.
I like how you started with Greg. So I think we played with a friend Night in the Woods when our friend came to visit, and they did all Greg, and I was like, guys, can we please hang out with B sometimes? I love her. We're gay and we actually want to kiss Greg for real.
Yeah, I think I just did it because I think I just split it both ways the first time I did it.
Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't even intend to it. I was like, I gotta make sure I hang out with them in an equal amount.
I think the nice thing is that no matter how you split it out, you're still friends with everyone. So
yeah.
It's like nice that they don't like gamify your relationship with these people that you've known for years.
Yeah, and you don't have to exclusively hang out with Greg in order to get the Angus thing. You can just hang out with Angus even if you meet with B.
That's true, yeah.
So I like that.
This is your indicator that you've successfully avoided spoilers. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Night in the Woods. Fucking mwah. Beautiful game. They got the assignment. They know Halloween. Your turn.
So, what I have is The Elder Scrolls, which is a game series that's been going on for quite a while. Started out with The Elder Scrolls Arena, followed by Daggerfall, Morrowind, Oblivion. The most recent entry in the main series is Skyrim, which is this sort of setting based pretty directly on D&D lore in a lot of ways. It was sort of created with the D&D concepts in mind. The first game was even closer to D&D in a lot of ways. I'm just kind of talking about it in more specific terms because I'm sure that many people know about the Elder Scrolls because Skyrim is an extremely big phenomenon culturally.
Yeah, but nobody's played Arena like you.
Yeah, I actually didn't play too much of Arena either. I mostly just looked into it, and there's some because there's some interesting things about Arena, such as the fact that back then you couldn't play Nor because they were just like bestial things that they were exclusively enemies. They were developed into more of a culture later on. Anyhow, the lore of the Elder Scrolls has always contained a lot of detail. There's several pantheons, both the regular sort of good divine gods called the Aedra, as well as the more evil sort of demon prince aligned pantheon of the Daedra. You got sort of regional religions. You have magic and creatures and the history that spans hundreds of years, and it's very intricate. And like many intricate settings, especially those based on D&D, there's also holidays to flesh out the lore around it. Now, sadly, in the mainline games, there hasn't so far not been a sort of sense of time passing through the games, because that has just probably not been able to be really displayed in a satisfying way.
Yeah, and isn't I don't know the exact timeline, but isn't, like, for example, the time span between even games is like completely massive, so they're completely divorced from each other.
Yeah, it depends a little bit. The time span between Morrowind and Oblivion, for example, actually isn't quite so long.
Okay.
This is like I believe like within a generation or something like that. So to the point where you actually still know about certain characters that were in Morrowind. Famously, the guy that you meet on the ship in Morrowind when you make your character, I forget his name, but it's a dark elf that's on the ship with you, and he lay in Oblivion. People talk about him as a saint because he took all the cliff racers out of Morrowind, but like waged a war on them.
Fucking St. Patrick ass looking.
Pretty much, yes, and it's a bit of an in-joke because people have always hated cliff racers in Morrowind because they're these sort of pterodactyl-looking flying things, and they are like they're everywhere. There's a lot of them, and even more so than that, you don't think it would just make me want to play Morrowind, but they're like everywhere, and they have an extremely high speed rating, so you could never outrun them. Every other monster, this is still something you can do in Skyrim and Oblivion, and many people do it, is you just hear the combat music and you just keep going because you just don't feel like engaging with them.
Yeah.
But cliff racers will come. They have this like very distinct sound that they do as they come close and do their attacks, and you can't run away from them.
Incredible.
There are mods that don't even remove them, they just have them. Because there's just so many of them in the game. And yeah, he's the guy that you meet on the ship there in Oblivion. They're like, oh, did you hear about how he took all the cliff races out of Morrowind, out of, Vardenfell actually is called the island that you're playing on in that one. And that's pretty cute. It's a very well-rounded sort of lore. There's lots of history. And so it's also always, like I said, they are not represented in the mainline games because you just kind of stuck on basically the same day for all eternity. There's weather effects that happen. There is an actual calendar running in-game, as there are often like quests that are based on days passing ever since Morrowind, I believe. I believe that Daggerfall maybe even had a season system because that was just a little easier to make happen because, there's certain constraints put on you when you have an actual sort of continuous world that you need to simulate, whereas Daggerfall was really more of a randomly generated world. So it was easy to just have weather effects appear in certain places based on what the date in the game was. Yeah. But even so, I don't believe they had holidays. They might have had. I need to look into that a little more. But Halloween in the setting is called the Witches' Festival, and we know a lot of lore about the Witches' Festival because of a spin-off MMO called The Elder Scrolls Online, which, like many MMOs, has a tendency to have, have holidays in game.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about a couple of those later.
Definitely, and yes, it's a Witches' Festival. It is an annual holiday that falls on the 13th of Frostfall. It coincides with Mephalas, that is one of the Evil Daedras' summoning day. Mephala, I believe, is the Daedric prince associated with murder, lies, and deception. It's also sex and secrets. I believe the sex part is not as big of a thing anymore these days, especially because she is just a spider thing. So it's like very
spider maid.
It's quite a lot of Slanesh there. We're gonna get to that later though.
Yeah.
And Frostfall, I believe, is actually the 10th month, so corresponds to October. So there you go. Just instead of on the 31st, it's on the 13th, which is like a funny little bit.
It's like that reminds me of, I think I saw like a fucking post on Twitter 1,000 years ago where it's like, guys, I'm really stupid. I've tried to write a Halloween story, and the first sentence I wrote was, it was Halloween and Friday the 13th.
I like that.
And I was banger.
I was just reading a little bit from the wiki here to give you an idea. During the festival, the denizens of Tamriel defy their superstitious fears. Ghosts, demons, and evil spirits are mocked and celebrated by both occult occurrences and outrageous costumes.
That's so funny because they're real and they will kill you.
Very much, yes. They are quite real, and I like this sort of angle they're going with of, if you have actual real monsters in the world, you can't just live in constant fear or else you'd not get anything done. So it's probably cathartic to have a day where you're just making fun of them.
That's cool. I like that.
If there a common thing that's happening is that beggars go and ask for alms, which they still always do, so whatever, but kids also go around asking for treats, and people are obliged to provide that to them. Plenty of them also engage in the sort of vandalism we know from our Halloween as in forms of pranks and little bits. There is, we will put many links in the show notes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
On the UESP wiki for the Elder Scrolls, there is a hollowjack Netch, which is described as a victim of vandalism. So Netches are these sort of alien-looking creatures that first showed up in Morrowind, I believe, that are just these large floating guys with tentacles coming out of them. And they got this one, I believe it is a pet, where they just put a pumpkin on his head, a jack-o'-lantern. It is absolutely adorable, and seeing this makes me want to play the game and get it.
Morrowind, I only played Oblivion and Skyrim, but I never played the Dragonborn DLC because I was too busy building my house.
It is extremely funny, because I remember getting the Dragonborn DLC and playing Skyrim quite continuously throughout all my teens, and it took me, I think, several years to get to the Dragonborn DLC.
Yeah, no, I think I made at least 3 different characters, and I was like, yeah, I'll get to Dragonborn eventually, and then I never did. I wanted to build my house.
It's the thing where I installed mods for Dragonborn long, and it's a great mod actually. That's the thing about it. It's actually really fun. There's I remember I think the last really big playthrough of it that I did it kind of in order, and it's you almost don't want to do that because you get so many cool abilities and shouts that are just not in the rest of the game from the Dragonborn area.
Yeah.
And it still feels quite fresh when I go there now because I just didn't go to that place as much as any other place in Skyrim back in the day, so that's kind of fun.
No, well, I want to play fucking Skyrim now.
Yeah, no, this is bad for me.
This is a horrible episode.
Yeah, right. So, pumpkins are iconic in the festival because, as usual, it's, taking stuff from the real world.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that happens here that will be showing up later too, and I'm sure is a theme in many sort of fantasy Halloweens, is that the portals to a specific Daedric realm known as Detritus opens.
The veil is thinner.
Yes, the veil is thinner, a very classic theme for Halloween across sort of cultures.
Yeah.
It is based on Herstine's hunting grounds.
I know, I love that guy.
But it is not a true plane of oblivion as a demi-plane, so it's a more ghostly thing that is just kind of existing for... Basically,
is that Wild Hunt coded also?
That's a good question. Actually, the thing is that it's a Daedra lore that comes from there.
Yeah,
So here's the thing: his name is Haluxak, better known as Hollowjack, the Pumpkin Spectre. And I can show you a picture of him.
Banger.
Because that is just Sleepy Hollow.
I've got one of those later. Just watch that.
You can very much tell that sort of this was built for the MMO. Because the festival existed before the this holiday as a part of the lore existed before ESO.
Yeah.
But ESO being an MMO, of course, wants to push cosmetics that are Halloween coded.
Just full on fucking Sleepy Hollow. I don't know if I'm going to talk about it in the intro, but this episode's going to come out on Halloween, and then in 5 days, I'm going to do the Sleepy Hollow episode. So I'm fucking in it to win it. I'd love to have this horse win.
I will rattle off a couple more things from the wiki here, just because it's nice little bits of extra lore. Because there is Hollowjack. Oh no, I talked about this one already, so we can cut this out. There's Old Nasty Knuckles, a creature from the myths of High Rock, a tall, thin, pale,
is that fucking Slenderman?
formal-dressed Dunmer specter whose
pissed.
joints bend the wrong way.
Is that fucking Slenderman?
Depending on how badly children have misbehaved, he may either punish them or kidnap them.
That's so funny. That's That's so funny.
It is quite the banger, definitely.
That's so funny. I love Slenderman lore.
They've been going through ESO has been going on for a while. I can actually recommend the game because it's quite fun to just run around all of Tamriel.
Yeah, Zuma's an ESO enjoyer and I love it.
Yeah, I haven't been playing it much because when you have 400 hours in it, I think the content gets a little boring at some point. But it's still just fun to run around all of it. One thing that's kind of interesting here is that the Witches' Festival is described as a time when the forces of sorcery and religion clash.
Ooh.
So it creates tensions.
Like Samhain and All Hallows Eve.
A little bit. It's definitely creating tensions with temples and the Mages Guild. And they're kind of like, oh, the temples are out here trying to fight evil on that night, while the Mages Guild is sort of offering half off on their enchantments.
That is really funny.
Right, and they also feature like the kind of like witches are featuring in the festival. Often they just kind of sell trinkets on that time because it's easy to push them to people around that time. People go to the woods and sort of try to do dark necromantic rituals and such like that. So again, a lot of stuff we know from sort of Wiccan vibes.
Yeah, it is really funny to like go into the woods to do dark necromancy and summon the dark necromantic forces when like my level 3 Kaji will just do it in the middle of the Whiterun and nobody will say anything.
Yes, it's it has to be. It's kind of funny too because in ESO actually necromantic spells are actually illegal and you will. However, I believe that in Skyrim it may not be illegal. Because that was like something that happened in there was actually like a plot point in Oblivion.
Yeah, because the main antagonist of the Mages Guild storyline is like Menamorak or whatever.
Manimarco, who's also actually the main antagonist of ESO.
Oh,
Main story, yeah.
Damn.
He is like a pretty big figure there. It's quite interesting. And yes, it's because that's like the big source of tension in the Mages Guild questline in Oblivion is that the current Archmage outlawed necromancy, and not everybody agrees with that.
Yeah.
And in Morrowind, it was illegal because you were, again, in Morrowind and in a very conservative part of Morrowind, which is really like the Saudi Arabia of Tamriel, because it's a very theocratic nation that values ancestor worship.
Yeah.
And so necromancy is extremely frowned upon to the point of like being criminalized, and that's why it was illegal there. But it's not across everything illegal because, again, like in Skyrim, I don't know if there's necessarily anything against it. I believe
you think there would be because like they got all the tombs and like ancestor worship.
They do have tombs, but they're not feeling good about them.
Yeah.
They tend to talk about the Draugr as like things that they fear, not really things that they like worship.
Yeah, yeah, which is what you'd think like, oh, the Draugr exist. You might want to get the necromancy in the blood, but I guess they kind of don't come about because of necromancy. They just happen.
Yeah, it's because I don't know to go too deep into it, but it's sort of like a just different religion than they're kind of following there. The ancient Nords worship dragons there. I got one more character though that they made up who's called Wisewing the Owl, and northern Tamriel it is associated with the Nordic god Juno, and is said to warn the unwary away from graveyards and witches' covens during the witches' festival. Is that?
I don't know. I was just guessing. I'm guessing. Like the warning thing, and owl. Sometimes Mothman is described as an owl.
He is a mythical old companion of Juno, the Roan god. So seems to be also that too.
Yeah.
But kind of associated with the sort of crows that Odin has, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that too.
Yeah, but that's
a
little look into the Elder Scrolls way of having fun with us. If there's like any nice pictures here, but there's not much. I engaged in some trickery around the Witches' Festival in ESO because it's a good time to farm and get XP bonuses.
I love it. Yeah, Elder Scrolls lore goes hard. I think, like you said, it was like kind of D&D focused, but they really branched out and did something.
They did branch out.
Really
when I
unique.
say D&D focus, instead it's really like it started out as a setting for D&D.
Yeah,
and like developed into a game, and that was sort of what Arena was, and then from there it just kind of kept developing.
Yeah, but I guess in that capacity, it's kind of like this is going to segue beautifully. In that capacity, it's kind of like how people appreciate like Dark Sun or Eberron or something like that. It's kind of like it started as D&D, but now it's its own thing, and now like Elder Scrolls is its own thing.
Yeah, settings as a whole kind of developed. Like settings for D&D certainly developed in a really interesting way because back in the day it was like if you wanted to run D&D, you really wouldn't necessarily put it in the Forgotten Realms.
Forgotten Realms.
You just all would kind of make up your own setting, but you would effectively just make the Forgotten Realms with your spin on it.
Yeah. What do you know about the Forgotten Realms off the top of your head? We've already discussed what our topics are for the fuck. None of this is a surprise. We're gonna talk about the Forgotten Realms next.
It is, yeah, I mean, what do I know about the Forgotten Realms? I know that the Sword Coast is a big deal in the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the stories are. That's where Baldur's Gate and Waterdeep are.
Yeah.
Also, Neverwinter, I believe that's very... Well, it's funny because you think it's up north, but I guess a name that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it is up north, isn't it?
I haven't looked at the map religiously, but I think something along that.
I just know a couple of geographic details. I know Icewind Dale is to the north of the Sword Coast. I know that... I don't know. It's a setting that's I kind of tried to get into the setting.
The thing about the setting that I learned accidentally through researching here, sorry to cut you off, is that it was invented in the 80s, and it's been constantly going through little source changes.
That's actually what I was just going to say, because I tried to get into the setting, and what I noticed was that it is a mess.
I have 4 different holidays for you.
Yeah.
Because it's just everybody wants to do their own little source material.
Yeah.
And now we have 4 Halloweens. Which is the funniest fucking thing.
It is very funny.
I think I think...
I don't want to cut you off there.
Oh, you're good.
I just think the funniest part about the sort of weird way that the plot developed is that I read a source book on the Forgotten Realms, and it would be like, oh, the halflings all disappeared during the Great Summer, but then they came back. And it's just like, what the fuck? Why
you just actively see who owns the rights to D&D with how Forgotten Realms lore just kind of pops up.
It's extremely funny how you can just tell from that it was probably like a year-long fucking bit that people hated and sort of just brought them back.
Yeah.
They were annoyed with it.
So, I think, like, this is like what I didn't actually know this off the top of my head, but like Forgotten Realms, and to the smaller extent, the continent of Faerun, was invented by Ed Greenwood in the 80s, but he was working on it since 1967, which is crazy to me. And like D&D was never always like a brand. Like I think when people wrote down the rules to D&D, it was built with the like for those who are absolutely stupid. Dungeons and Dragons, D&D, like it's made with the like kind of assumption that you're gonna make up your own world. But Faerun and the Forgotten Realms comes in anytime they want to like make a video game or a book, and they need a setting because like D&D is just like you make your own setting. I don't know, and everybody kind of has a little hand in it, even though it was invented by Ed Greenwood, especially when like Wizards of the Coast comes around, because like Baldur's Gate 3 is Faerun, and the movie Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is Faerun, and the Magic the Gathering Dungeons & Dragons set is Faerun. But then you also got like some old classics, like the Durun Sagen, that's Faerun, and then the MMORPG Neverwinter Nights is Faerun. So we have so much fucking lore, and it's so messy. It's so funny. I think, like, I have Liar's Night, High Harvest Tide, Troll Tide, and then Moonfest, which is called Moonfest. And I think all of these are based on a calendar, and not all of them are in the Halloween month, because it's a 12-month calendar, kind of like Elder Scrolls, where it's basically just, like, they didn't want to fuck with it, so we have 12 months, and most of these take place in the 10th month, except for Troll Tide. But some of these are like, we're doing the winter starting thing, but we're doing some Halloween lore. And then you have the Harvest Festival, which is technically taking place in September, but we're doing some Halloween lore. So here's how it shakes up. The first one I want to talk about is... Oh, the other thing about it is that they kind of like, whenever they make source materials that reference the holidays, sometimes they try to justify the fact that it's so messy by being like, oh yeah, they actually only celebrate this one in Waterdeep. Oh yeah, they only actually celebrate this one in Baldur's Gate. They always
have, I think that's perhaps the one strength I will give to the setting, is that I like the sort of city focus on them. Like, they really fleshed out the city specifically, and I think it makes it a lot easier to run stuff in there because like when you try to run it across the continent, it gets messy so quickly.
Yeah, and if
So
you have like some main
like,
cities
set water
and like you want to do a favoring thing, but you want to make up your own cities, that's like allowed.
Yes.
Because like a lot of the focus is on some cities, and then there's a lot of empty space on the map, and I think that's useful. The first one I'm going to talk about is Liar's Night. It is the biggest Halloween-coded one, I'd say. And this one is celebrated on the 30th of the month of Marpanoth, which is Fantasy October. And the wiki said that this one is celebrated along the cities on the Sword Coast. So this is like a big Baldur's Gate, Waterdeep one. Yeah, Neverwinter, I think, also gets down on it, but very, very specific, funny reason I'm going to get to in a second. So the Liar's Night, lore-wise, is held to celebrate the goddess of deception, Lyra, and also the Lord of Shadows, the Mask. And the main conceit is that you wear masks and get into costumes in order to trick these deceptive gods into not bothering you. And you can also do it to, like, trick your friends, because we're in costumes, I'm pranking you, Devil's Night stuff. And then they also did jack-o'-lantern carving. They wanted to specifically be like, there's jack-o'-lanterns, by the way. However, this one reached Neverwinter, and they got a new name called the Masquerade of Liars. And the reason it reached Neverwinter is because when they made the MMORPG Neverwinter Nights, they wanted to have some fucking seasonal stuff going on. So they're like, look at the jack-o'-lanterns. Liar's Night.
That's pretty much how it goes.
Yeah. It's funniest shit ever. I think there's supplements for it from before Neverwinter Nights came out, but not a lot. And then the Neverwinter Nights one is the big one. And then in, I think, like, D&D 5th edition, they brought it back. They're like, Liar's Night is a big thing. And it's got a new name in Neverwinter, by the way.
Oftentimes, especially with the... I mean, back in the day, supplements just weren't as big of a thing as they are today.
Yeah.
I guess the golden age for those is over, too, because these days when you get, like, a supplement, it's going to be, like, a half... Like, it's going to be one half... It's going to be, like, 1/4 character options, 1/4 lore, and then just half of the book is going to be, like, an adventure.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks. It's kind of what I... Because I really loved Spelljammer as a concept, and then there was just, like... There was not a lot of actual lore content to work with there.
Yeah. I think if you haven't gathered already, dear audience, Zuma and I play, like, multiple role-playing games.
Well,
we don't...
We
in theory. No, I think because we have done, like... We haven't done campaigns that spanned years, but we have, like, actually genuinely played, like, half a dozen to, like, a dozen fucking settings.
We have played, like, settings definitely. We have done homebrew ones. We have done, like, we have done Aberon and Spelljammer and just a lot of stuff. And it's kind of funny because we always prime ourselves and make cool characters, and then we do one session and drop it, which I'm sure we're not the only ones in the world that do that.
But I bet everybody else just keeps it 5th edition. And we're explorers.
Well, a lot of what we do was 5th edition.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We never played 4th edition.
And why would we?
Because I grew up playing 4th edition.
Yeah, I mean, I think my first
nerd.
exposure to D&D was 4th edition, and it's kind of funny because everybody was like, oh man, this one sucks so much, and then everybody in which plays it.
Oh, I was, like, really into it in high school. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And okay, so, like, my parents are nerds, and my childhood friend was a nerd, and my childhood friend's parents were nerds. So we had a long-running D&D party that was me, my mom, my dad, my best friend Jacob, and my best friend Jacob's dad, Brian.
What's DMing?
Brian.
Oh, okay, well.
Because Brian has a room in the garage, up in the loft, that's a D&D dungeon room.
I love it.
Coolest fucking shit ever. Like, posters.
Why you never show me that one?
Because Jacob doesn't, like, live with his parents anymore, and I didn't want to go over to the Evanses and be like, hey, it's been a while. Can I see the D&D room?
You're really breaking your in-universe lore here.
No, because in universe, these people exist.
What animals are they?
Well, they have to be foxes. And Jacob is...
Oh man, like Brian. I mean, Brian, I guess.
Oh, you know what? They're gonna be, the whatever dog Willow is. You didn't meet Willow. What are the dogs with, like, the floppy ears, but they're short? They're not Dachshunds. Fuck!
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whatever. Dogs. They're dogs, by the way.
Cool. Okay, nice.
Cocker Spaniel.
But we were fucking 4th edition hounds, like long-running 4th edition campaigns, and I think my mom was like, can we, for the love of God, play Pathfinder? And we just never did.
how history repeats itself.
Right? But yeah, Dungeons and Dragons lore is funny. My mom also played Neverwinter Nights. Like, I never played it, but I watched her play it.
I know that Josh Strive Hayes is like a YouTuber who does very high effort sort of video essays on video games and MMOs. Apparently he started his YouTube career by making guides for, I don't know if it was Neverwinter Nights or the Dungeons and Dragons online game. And I thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah, because nobody ever, I feel like, at least in my circles, nobody ever talks about Neverwinter Nights, and nobody talks about the MMORPG for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Like, all of our friends are WoW people, which is a fun, spoiler for later.
Fair enough.
Yeah. The next holiday, the next holiday is High Harvest Tide. So this one's more just a standard harvest festival, which technically actually takes place on the night of the 30th of Lent and the 1st of Marpanoth, which is September into October, because it's a 12-month system. So this is just a harvest festival, but outside of taking place in fall, it's kind of like an older one. The first written source I could find on it is in a supplement in 1991, the 30th edition of Dungeon Magazine. So it's kind of like interesting because you see this evolution of like, I don't know, it's fantasy. We don't have to reinvent Halloween. Let's just do a harvest festival. And then as soon as the MMORPG hits the scene, they're like, Liar's Night, by the way. That's the cool holiday. And then, High Harvest Tide kind of got left to the wayside because Liar's Night became more fun. But as a result, some of the supplement lore just kind of doesn't stick around, but it's, like, weird. In the wiki, I saw that there are, like, a lot of people kind of celebrate the last time you can eat before the winter sets in. But there's a lot of people who do their traveling because you can't travel in the winter. And it is said that a child born on High Harvest Tide is blessed by the goddess of luck, Timora, to be forever imbued with wanderlust. And then the wiki also had this weird thing where it's like, it is said that the dwarves drank only water on this night, and the elves drank only dew. But these customs have fallen out of practice in the recent years in this here Faerun. And then there was the most batshit fucking lore thing I saw of all time, which is like, women also, for some reason, gain complete control over their own reproductive system. So they can have sex, and they can choose to get pregnant or not pregnant, and it's all up to them.
Bold.
Which is like, it feels like it's like, yeah, you can have sex without a condom, because the women can just decide not to get pregnant if you want.
Amazing.
And then there was even more batshit thing where it's like, also, women will know if they've been poisoned. And this counts as like if they accidentally drink like poison or get bit by a poisonous animal, or if somebody's trying to slip something in their drink. So I don't know what they were going at with the lore. They were fucking just like, women get magic, by the way.
Yeah, again, it's this thing that we talked about, how the Forgotten Realms of Faerun as a whole are like 45 years old, probably.
Yeah, that one's like big 90s, 80s energy for lore.
It is crazy. This is the type of shit, but like, nothing about this stuff surprises me anymore, because
Yeah.
I think the two big ones, and I'll come to Battletech later for like my little honorable mention, but I know that in Battletech, for example, there's no black people because all the planets that had black people on them just happened to starve during like the destruction of the Star League.
A, I didn't know that. B,
Yeah.
like, black people exist because of you be turned black if you live by the equator, and there's gonna always be an equator. How the fuck did they not think that through?
No, it's not about thinking it through. It's just that, you know, in the lore, people kind of spread out among the stars, and then the Star League was found, whatever, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
They just came up with an excuse to not have black people in their role-playing, or like in their
Oh my
leadership
God.
game, in a game where you don't even see the pilots ever.
Oh my god.
And another one that just caught me so off guard was me reading the rulebook for the Middle Earth role-playing game, and I was sort of talking about...
Middle Earth, sorry.
Yes,
okay,
Middle
yeah.
Earth role-playing game, so a role-playing game for Lord of the Rings that came along before the movies was the 80s. Very, very crunchy, very, very D100 sort of role-playing game. And it was talking about where to get inspirations for your campaigns. It was like, oh, you could look at these records of real-life wars, such as the Revolutionary War, or World War II, or the War of Northern Aggression. I don't know what nerds were smoking in those days. I just genuinely don't get it.
Oh my god. They were like, oh my god.
It's quite funny, because these days, you know, we have
The
this
80s?
big... Yeah, because we have these like Gamergate things and weirdos just getting really mad about titties not being in video games as much anymore. But back then, it's just nerds were weird about some stuff.
Yeah. And it's also doubly weird. Like, obviously, I wasn't around back then, so I don't know how bad it was. But, like, if you played Dungeons and Dragons in the 1980s, you might literally get beaten up. As opposed to now, where it's, like, a thing you do with your cool friends.
Yeah, like,
so,
like your dorky buddy is doing.
Yeah. And I feel like if there's some... That, like... Oh, yeah, you should definitely be racist if you're bullied. Obviously not. But, like, you probably get into, like, a weird headspace if you're just constantly, like, getting cooked.
Yeah. Definitely, especially, we watched heavy metal recently, and that was had these horrid 80s nerd vibes, where I'm like, damn.
Hated heavy
metal.
metal.
Because I always sometimes, like, almost want to get wistful about, like, old nerdy shit, but there's really no point.
Yeah.
It's just, like, you can be nerdy in the same capacity as you did back then, just without being weird about it.
They were really weird about sex and race in a way, and I don't even think they acknowledged, like, queer things existed, period.
It was weird. It's
just
something you don't get used to.
Yeah, heavy metal was a really hard watch.
We don't like heavy metal.
We don't like heavy metal in this family.
You got more on D&D?
Yeah, I got 3 more holidays for you. Two more.
Okay.
These are short ones, though. This is a more modern one. It's called Trolltide, and this one is Waterdeep specific. At first, it takes place in the 1st of Kythorn, the month that is June. So you're like, what? How is this Halloween? Well, it's a celebration for the end of the Second Troll War against the trolls.
Really?
Yeah, go figure. And so the children dress up as trolls, and then they run door to door causing mischief. And they're like, if you don't give us baked goods, i.e. treats, we're going to commit a lot of vandalism, i.e. tricks. So they just have summer Halloween in Waterdeep, and it's based on trolls. And that's actually, okay, I was wrong. I thought it was a modern one. The first mention of it was in a setting guide for Waterdeep known as the City of Splendors, published in 1994. Trolltide is old. Older than Liar's Night. We love Trolltide. The last one is the Feast of the Moon, known also as Moonfest. And it's basically Fantasy New Year, but not like it's on the 30th of Fantasy November, not Fantasy December, the month of Uktar. But it's basically New Year. But it's Halloween-y because it's a day of remembrance for the dead. And it's a day where the veil between life and undeath is thinnest, so you can see the ghosts of your relatives and stuff like that. And in the lore, it is described that many wars took place after the harvest, the minute that food became scarce. And as a result, a lot of soldiers died. And so on the 30th of Fantasy November, you hold a vigil and a feast to honor your dead relatives who you can see because the veil is thin. Moonfest.
That's cute.
Yeah.
It's a lot of input. It's kind of fun. You should have known that Forgotten Realms would have been a horrible pick for this.
Absolutely.
Like,
but then the more I read about it, the more I'm like, we're fucking doing a bit now.
It is a good bit, definitely.
Moonfest is the oldest one I can find. It was mentioned in the Advanced D&D rulebook published in 1988. And Moonfest. But that's the 4 holidays I could find. There's probably more.
I don't like that. There's probably one for the elves, one for the dwarves, one for the Icewind Dale humans.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm gonna move on now.
Let's do it.
To my honorable mention here. I tried researching what Halloween is like in the Battletech universe. And Battletech is the setting in which humanity figures out how to basically warp travel, and this way they manage to sort of colonize the like sort of area that's like very far from Earth. I don't know how to describe this, but basically later on we would have something called the Inner Sphere, which is sort of the extent of the human colonization effort that happened back then. After colonization, there were like hundreds of years of like a golden age, but then the sort of unified human government, referred to as the Star League, collapsed due to like political crises and a couple of assassinations. What happened then was that the leader of the military took basically the entire Star League military and went on a great exodus away from it and sort of left 5 kind of neo-feudal successor states to sort of basically engage in what is known as the Succession Wars, which spanned, I believe, 100 or 200 years. And this setting is mostly known for having mechs.
Yeah.
It's called Battletech, and you kind of steer these things called battle mechs. And that's pretty much it. It's a miniature game, so you just kind of paint up your miniatures and play the game. It's not necessarily a war game as much as Warhammer, for example, is, because it really is more of a board game, because you have a very kind of dedicated grid field for it.
Yeah.
You
don't gotta get the fucking tape measure out for it.
Not for the main game, no. You do have to get it out for the mode called Alpha Strike, which is very popular these days, because it's a little... Battletech, like sort of the standard game, sort of fight in a way that is like a lance versus lance. So that's 4 mechs versus 4 mechs. And it is very sort of skirmish focused, whereas Alpha Strike is more of like army focused, so you also can get like infantry and tanks to support your guys. There are actually rules for that is the same in both versions, so you can have little aerial attacks and such. And I was curious if there was a Halloween in that setting, and there isn't information on that. I assume just from the way that the setting is structured that Halloween is really just the same as it is here, and maybe people just don't observe it as much anymore because it's interesting. It's not a very miserable setting. There is a lot of war in that setting, and like human life is extremely cheap just because of like the extreme population of humanity, but there are plenty of places where people just kind of live in quiet, normal, like, communities.
That's one thing that I came to the conclusion of upon researching this video, and it's not even like at a folkloric standpoint, but you really only get holidays in a setting if it's a video game where you're like actively playing on a calendar and there's events, like especially MMORPGs.
Yeah.
Or a book where you get to actually see the passage of time in a book.
Yeah.
And like a season's happening, so people in the town are doing something. And if you have like a standalone army game where the main focus is you build the mechs, you fight with the mechs, and maybe there's like books on the source material. I bet there's
There's a lot of novels on BattleTech, but you know, with like the sort of hard sci-fi, and especially with the time frames that we're looking at, of like several hundred years since because I believe the current setting is around the year 3000. So in a lot of places, especially after the Starly collapsed, they're just like they developed their own folkloric sort of holidays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
However, just for me to get to my point here, there is a book that was published called Mag Warrior Halloween Stories, and I didn't want to keep the synopsis of one story from you because you might have an idea of what the reveal of this one is. Let me just read it to you.
Okay.
So this book included an interview with Sergeant David Hoffman, late of the 5th Orient Hussars, which is a Free Worlds League unit. The Free Worlds League is sort of like a space Austria-Hungary, like a collection of sort of allied princedoms and fiefdoms that is very hard to keep together.
Yeah.
And he's been explaining the situation before and after something called the Battle of Sierra in 3031. And he explains that his lance was playing poker when raiders arrived, and they all left their cards as they were, and they went on to fight. His commanding officer, called Lieutenant Senior Grade James Henderson, was killed at the start of the fight, his awesome going nova after an engine explosion. So when a mech goes nova, this is basically like when the main power unit gets damaged, it basically turns into a nuclear explosion. That's referred to as going nova in the setting. And that's like a pretty harsh way to go. And especially the setting is one of these settings where technology is stagnated, so destroying technology is actually very frowned upon. So mechs going nova is like always like... It's not that it doesn't happen very often, but it is always seen as like a bit of a tragedy.
Yeah.
Especially because there's absolutely no way for the pilot to survive that, because again, you're basically meters away from a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
Right. But in the end, the 5th managed to repulse the raiders, and when they arrived back to the barrack with the cards still hidden, Hoffman checked what cards James Henderson had been dealt. Do you know what he may have had?
What do you have?
pair of aces and eights. The dead man's hand.
The dead man's hand.
I just thought it was very cute. That's just very Battletech.
Any setting that's like a hard sci-fi or like real life, but like Halloween's around, it's like maybe something fucking cursed happened.
Yeah.
Banger every time. I'm trying to think of an example.
This is especially big with like mercenary units in Battletech, that they're extremely suspicious. Just like as soldiers also in general tend to be. And so I thought that was a very fun little setting story.
I don't know what I was thinking of. Like, I worked at an actual real life theater. I played with a community theater in Kalamazoo, and they had the lore like that. Like, you're just normally doing a play, it's like whatever, but it's like when Halloween rolls around, you're gonna want to watch out because one of the doors in the costume shops is gonna knock on Halloween night. You get like, just people are gonna get into that shit on Halloween.
It is funny too, because in the universe, this was like an interview with a guy, and it could be that he's just literally made it up.
Yeah.
It could just be like yarn, which is also just it's very nice. I thought that was a nice look into like that setting and how it kind of builds itself. Because again, it's like extremely hard sci-fi. I believe there are like alien life forms, but these alien life forms are going to be like animals.
Yeah.
Like there's no other sapient in the known universe except humans. And this is like actually like feeding kind of into a bit like, because like I said, the setting isn't grimdark the way that 40k is, where everything's horrifying and there's like horror around every corner and nothing but any violence. But it is a setting of like humans kind of managing to achieve this like golden age of like practical post-scarcity and managing to just squander it over like political bullshit.
Yeah.
And then engaging in hundreds of years of warfare that just never stops. And so people engage in weapons of mass destruction. They destroy random towns because it's part of some random campaign. It's quite bleak look at humanity. I would argue that it's actually one of the most dystopian settings that isn't just outright like a dystopia.
Yeah. I think it's very rich for if you want to have like interpersonal narratives and stuff like that.
Definitely. Read an extremely good book about it. We can cut this out later, but in case you want to pad it out. I read a very great book set in Battletech called Legacy, which
we'll keep the tangent, but I will say, if you want to skip spoilers for Battletech Legacy, you can skip to this timestamp: 1 hour, 56 minutes, and 32 seconds.
Which is, instead of following like a person throughout the book, you follow like a mech from its design and engineering to it being reduced to farming equipment in like 400 years later.
That's crazy.
And it's kind of fascinating because like in the end, the second to last story is somebody sort of seeing a plate from the mech that was recovered and sort of like put in an exhibition in the museum, and you just see all the names of the people that like kind of etch their names into the thing, and it's like 20 names long. Because again, it's like this is kind of a theme in this one that technology kind of changes hands, and that human life is very cheap, but technology isn't.
I think. Well, I mean, I'll keep this in obviously because we're having a fun discussion podcast.
Yeah,
but it's cool to just like. I think that's the main draw of this episode. Is just settings are so cool. Because, like, obviously you gotta make a story, and obviously you gotta make a game or something like that, but then just having somebody sit down and be like, okay, what does this world look like? What are we doing?
Yeah.
And then you can make stories based off of that. Like, that's a cool story.
Yeah.
The Halloween one's cool. We're not even... This is your fucking honorable mention, but, like, it's still so cool.
I think, again, like, I don't want to spoil too much, so if you don't want spoilers for Legacy, the Battletech book.
Yeah.
But the very final story was added to, like, sort of bookend the anthology, and the first story is about this, like, engineer who sort of was working on the mech when their facility was raided, and she managed to basically trick the raiders into getting bad information, which she kind of paid for with her life. But that was why they named the mech the Grasshopper, which was her idea. And she also kind of... They talked about how, and I believe this is something they actually do with actual engineering projects, they always write their name onto every sort of piece of machinery that they put into like the machine they're building. Yeah. So like in the end, this didn't work, so we can like know who made that one, so we can work with them on making like a better thing. And in the very last sort of story, like 300 or 400 years later, just like piece of farming equipment kind of just like broke down, and they're like rummaging through it, and they find this plate that has her name on it.
That's crazy.
It was like such a fun bookend in my opinion, just to like, because like that's really something that didn't show up anymore, because of course everything that she etched her name into would be like deep in the machinery of the thing.
Yeah.
And so it's just crazy to see that and then be like, huh, damn, that's, I don't know what the fuck that means. Maybe that was the manufacturer. Anyways, let's fucking try to get the thing fixed up again. Just put it somewhere. It kind of goes to show how, like, I don't know, like, machines outlast humans by a very long time, but machines are also inherently human because, you know, they always have, like, a purpose for humanity.
Yeah.
So, like, they were designed by humans for humans, even if their purpose is something sinister, such as warfare in this case.
Yeah, well, technology is often, like, something that somebody kind of commits at a personal level, but the end goal is to do something that will last and reach everybody.
And then it affects so many people, from, like, the people that, you know, benefit from it, from the people that damage from it, people that steer it. I obviously have, like, a bit of a closer connection to that because I'm, you know, a railroader.
Yeah.
And so, you know, a train kind of goes from being designed to being put into use to being, you know, updated and repaired and re-engineered, and it's being driven by so many people, and especially when you're like in passenger operations, there's also so many people on it at any given time.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how technology kind of seems like this cold, unapproachable thing, but it is a very, very human thing in the end because again, like I said, it's made by humans for humans in some fashion.
Yeah, I don't fucking know how a computer works, but I'm definitely a part of, like, this computer, but also, like, the internet, and, like, I'm putting something on the internet.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people 30 years ago were coding something.
Yeah, it's funny to think about how, like, you know, we have, like, all these pieces of technology, and, like, at some point they passed through the hands, like, they were at some point blueprinted by some guy, and at some point somebody in some facility assembled them, and then they, like, ended up here. And it's funny to think about all the kind of hands it went through, because it is so hard to make the intricate technology we have these days, and that's why we should probably, you know, make more of an effort to understand them and to, like, make sure that they don't further, I want to say, certificate.
And this is once again your signal that you have successfully avoided spoilers. Thank you again for listening further.
Do you have an honorable mention? Because I know I can't.
Animal Crossing?
Fair enough.
I didn't, like, write anything down, but I was like, oh god, I have one more story here. It was like an anecdote I had where, I think I was talking about this yesterday, but I played one game that I'm about to talk about, and then Animal Crossing every New Year, because I wanted to see the ball drop, have the thing that happens in my third game happen, and then watched everybody do the fireworks in Animal Crossing all at the same time. And Animal Crossing is another one of those games that is, like, based on the actual calendar, so, like, you play the holidays as they happen. And each little Animal Crossing game, I think, has a Halloween event. There's, like, a pumpkin-headed guy. Everyone does something different, but the Halloween furniture goes hard, and then the mushroom fall furniture goes hard. And you can get, like, Halloween furniture and mushroom furniture by helping the pumpkin-head guy out. So honorable mention to Animal Crossing. You help him out. I don't even remember what you do, but you get the rad mushroom furniture.
Fair enough. I never played Animal Crossing, so...
I played way too much of it.
Yeah. Right, but my final pick is the world of Warhammer, and more specifically Warhammer Fantasy. I believe there's also lore for this in Age of Sigmar because of the way that the Age of Sigmar world lore works. There isn't really a lot in terms of examples you can go for because it's a very complicated setting. I still haven't, like, entirely understood how it works, to be honest. But, you know, that's irrelevant. What is relevant, though, is that in Warhammer Fantasy, the sort of Halloween equivalent is known as Geheimnistag or Geheimnisnacht. It is also known as Geheimnisnacht Eve, which doesn't even make sense, but that's a very common theme in Warhammer naming conventions.
It's so funny to hear you just say Geheimnisnacht, and you know fully well that it's just so funny.
Yeah.
You're just a German-speaking
I always did that. I just kind of talk about it because I don't want this to be interpreted as me being racist or whatever. But I really don't like it when people kind of speak a language and then a word from their native language comes up and they pronounce it in, like, their native tongue. Mm-hmm. And I know that's this is like probably like a cancelable offense, frankly, but like it just ruins the flow of a sentence in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because you need to switch codes, and that will always be noticeable. And like,
well, like
that's
even
like
in
for
like
me,
a
my best example is that like when I go to the airport, they would be like, oh, which terminal you need to get to, and I think, oh, I'm flying Lufthansa, even though I know that that's not how that's pronounced. Because like again. Like, for one, it would break up the flow of my sentence, and on the other hand, the other person might not understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of, like, I'm a very novice German speaker, and I'm very guilty of this whenever I'm speaking, like, with my American friends, and I'm like, yeah, I was at the store yesterday, and I had to spend 50 euro on my fucking groceries.
Yeah.
Or
which is very useless, because that's just called euro in English.
Yeah, and I don't even do it intentionally, I just kind of fucking am stupid.
Uh-huh.
I get what you're saying, because I commit it.
Right. I suppose I would go more into Warhammer lore, but Warhammer lore is extremely far-reaching. So for the purpose of this, what is important to know about the Warhammer setting is that we have, you know, magic and a lot of different factions that were kind of grown over several decades and are still, in a way, being worked on in a separate setting that is also kind of the same setting, but it's kind of whatever. And again, there's magic. There's also something called the Forces of Chaos, which is sort of a evil force in the setting that demons and stuff come from.
And then it goes all the way to 40k.
Well, not necessarily.
In ways.
Well, yeah, in a way. It's complicated though. But actually, funnily enough, that used to be just like straight up the lore, but that was changed over the years as the editions changed.
That's probably
like it used to be that like Warhammer Fantasy was just like some very isolated planet in the 40k universe, but that's not the case anymore.
That's funny.
Because Age of Sigmar changed that significantly. But anyways, what we're talking about is Geheimnistag, Geheimnisnacht Eve. It's also known as the Day of Mystery and the floating holiday in the Empire. And the Empire of Mankind is sort of this Germanic, Teutonic kind of faction, and there's a lot of different cultures and setting and factions in the setting. They have different names for it. It is actually known as Winter's Eve in Bretonnia, which is a sort of French High Middle Ages inspired area. It's known as Twilight's Tide to the Elves. There are both high elves that live on kind of a continent called Ulthuan, which is sort of Atlantean in its lore, and it's also known as Ar Uskul to the dwarves. But it is not a holiday that in its code of conduct is unique to any of these factions, because it is the day that marks the time when the dark moon Morsleep and the white moon Mansleep are both full in the night sky. So whenever this occurs, this is Geheimnisnacht, and this only happens once per year for what is called the known world, so the entire world of Warhammer Fantasy.
Wait, does it happen on the same night in a calendar year, or can it just happen once a year?
I believe that is not clear.
Okay.
It says here this occurs only once per year for the known world, and is considered time when the veil between the mortal world and other planes of existence becomes thin.
Whoa.
Sometimes dangerously so.
The only thing I know about Geheimnisnacht is playing Vermintide, where it
Yes.
shows up during real-life Halloween.
It is in a lot of games that sort of have Warhammer Fantasy content. If it's a continuous game, that's when it would have an event. I don't know if there's one in the Warhammer MMO, which is defunct but also kept alive through like private servers. I don't know if Geheimnisnacht is a thing in that one. I would assume so.
Yeah.
Because it's been around for a while. I want to keep reading a little bit here though.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Because this Day of Mystery, Geheimnisnacht, is dedicated to Mord, who is the god of the dead. And not the undead, like the god of the dead.
Mm-hmm.
And many strange and unique festivals occur on this holiday throughout the Empire. Auguries are commonly performed, sometimes with spectacular or terrifying results. Humans also take this day to pay homage to their ancestors, and sometimes these ancestor spirits come back to converse with the living.
We're in all the like keynotes here.
Yes, right. There's actually some more astronomical information here, because the dark moon Morsleep is only full twice a year, and one of these occasions marks its perigee, when it's closest to the known world in its orbit, and it is a dark. It is a dark moon because it is literally evil. Because the moon was created. This is going deep into the lore, but basically, there used to be the spacefaring race called the Old Ones, and on the planet that is known as the known world, they had these portals at the poles. And when chaos kind of came into the world, these polar gates collapsed, and that's when the moon was basically shot into the sky from there.
Okay.
That's at least how I understand it, but it might also not be entirely. As it says here, mostly it was a cursed, a moon formed from the solidified magical energies cast into the skies when chaos first burst upon the mortal world with the failure of the Old One's polar gates. So yeah. It's literally an evil,
fucked up moon lord.
literally an evil entity, and that's why the veil becomes so thin when it's just close, like, because it's in the perigee, so it's very close, and then you got the other moon kind of there too.
Yeah, that goes hard actually. That's unique. Evil moon.
Yeah, Warhammer is great for lore that just goes hard because the entire setting is like, what if things just go hard all the time?
What is like the
Just like, I think you really gotta stop worrying and start loving the camp of the setting to really enjoy it to its fullest.
I think it is like Warhammer is camp as hell and it bangs.
Yeah. It's like camp in an extremely cool way where it's just like you can just do whatever the fuck you want as long as it's like really, really cool.
Yeah.
And so that's why you have rats with giant fucking World War I artillery.
That's why you have to put like several skulls on your suit of armor.
Yeah, definitely. Like skulls are a big thing. Yeah, people observe this holiday in different ways. Like I said, Gardensnacht is... Oh, actually, I have an answer for your question earlier, because it says Morslip's chaotic orbit means the Gardensnacht never falls upon the same night in subsequent years. Mortal folk, however, never take care never to be surprised by its onset. So they kind of observe the moon, and like I imagine the sort of mages of the setting would tell people to like get ready, because again, like
the evil
they
Halloween
are
is happening.
very real demons in the setting that will very much kill you.
Yeah.
Right. It says here in the Dragwald and Musalon, these are Bretonnian areas.
Mm-hmm.
Peasants abandon their hovels and take shelter in castles and fortified inns. In the Ogre Kingdoms, vast cauldrons of bloody meat are sacrificed to appease the Great Maw, which is, I'm not going to get into that. In sort of Dwarven holds, ill-famed caverns are being sealed, and then they just place like guards in front of it to make sure that nothing comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And the elves sort of just engage in a lot of prayers and sort of isolating themselves because they're also fucking scared of it. Because Geheimnisnacht, again, this is like, it's chaos in the setting is a very much objectively evil force.
It's like even less fun than in Elder Scrolls, because like they're coming for, like in Elder Scrolls, it's like watch out, the demons are out maybe, and then in this
yeah,
it's like they're
always,
looking for
like
you.
in Elder Scrolls, it's always demons, and demons. I think one fun part about the Elder Scrolls is that like any sapient being like is not gonna be objectively evil, and some of them are just assholes.
Yeah,
and some of them like are just not gonna care that much, and like. It depends on the personality of the thing that's sort of crossing over it to see whether it is like a good thing or a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But chaos is bad.
Because they're just actually evil for real, and they're coming for you.
It is an evil thing, and during the time it's not just strengthened. So that is kind of what happens there.
This holiday sucks.
It is. I like this, by the way, as a theme. I've seen it before of like a holiday that's just complete ass.
The Futurama Christmas thing.
Yes, the Futurama Christmas thing. Also, like the sort of like the purge. I know we kind of hate this. This is bullshit.
This fucking sucks. God, it's so good.
I like the trivia here. Geheimnistag shares some similarities to the real world holiday of Halloween.
There's some similarities.
It's
maybe one or two.
And yeah, like we talked about, we are both big fans of Vermintide, even though our friends don't want to play with us anymore because they play too much of it.
They like Darktide now.
Not even that one though.
They like Helldivers more than anything.
Yeah, it fucking sucks, dude. Anyways, shout out to our friends who are listening to this podcast.
Shout out to you. They got all the way here and now they're getting killed.
Right. But yeah, it usually comes with special sort of... I know that in Vermintide, which is a co-op game in which you kind of take up these characters that are sort of fantasy archetypes, and you do missions, and during the Geheimnisnacht events, there is always like a special mission that is often also like a little surreal. because it's not like clear if they're just all having a nightmare together or if this is like something they're actually doing. Because of the nature of chaos and the fact that these people have gone into like very chaos-tainted places. It might be real, or it might not be real, but be real, because reality kind of stops being like meaningful once you've engaged with chaos too much.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat. And you can of course grind for many a nice object, I think. I don't know. I never like
that's
engaged
foreshadowing
so much
that'll come in handy in a few minutes here.
Oh, I bet. But yeah, that's kind of. I like Warhammer. So
Warhammer goes hard.
It's
like
kind of
it.
interesting because I think I'm in the same place. You are currently in the same place that I used to be for a while, which is like you kind of approach Warhammer and it's this monolith because it is just gigantic.
Yeah.
There is such an unbelievable amount of lore because the makers of Warhammer, like all of its kind of contents, they're called Games Workshop, and they like are very liberal with the IP when it comes to writing books about it. Like it's funny because they are famously litigious about people sort of like going for the intellectual property, but they themselves are also quick to license things.
Yeah.
This is why there's a lot of very bad video games about it, but that's also why there's like a lot of really good books from the setting. There's like oodles of lore about it. There's always
there are
lore.
good games for the lore.
Yeah, great. There is great games for the lore. There is there's going to be always lore in the codexes for the armies that they release, because this is in the end like a wargaming sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it is funny because I'm also listening to a podcast called Laying Down the Lore, and they started the 40k version of that podcast by talking about how the editions sort of evolved.
Yeah.
And it is crazy that the game, the lore, and everything is just one big marketing campaign to sell plastic miniatures.
Yeah, I think that's why I always took so... Like, I never had any interest in Warhammer until, like... I was like 2019 or something. And I don't even have an interest. I just like started meeting people who played it.
Yeah.
But like before that, I was like, I'm not touching this because I'm gonna have to spend $1 billion on the game,
Yeah.
and that's all there is to the lore is
And
playing the game, and that's not the case.
It is a fascinating slow burn.
Yeah.
Just like again, like I also like I saw Warhammer and I was like, oh, this game looks fun. I guess I'll play it. Like the lore is kind of weird, and then you like look a little bit more to lore and think, oh yeah, the lore is cool. I watch some lore videos, I guess, and then it's like I can't imagine that this is like their actual, because that would be like devilishly insane for them to be like, we're planning on someone taking 7 years to get into this hobby, but once they got you, they got you. You just keep buying their fucking plastic.
It's so yeah, you could.
But it's like because it can't be possible that they're making a lot of money on the books or the fucking games, because again they're just licensing it out.
Yeah.
But people are very passionate about the setting, so there's a lot of people who are going to make good content about it.
Because the setting is like built on fun. Like there's like obviously internal logic and stuff like that, but they go out of the way to make lore decisions that are just like, that's sick as hell.
It's like really cool. It's like
they gave a rat a Gatling gun.
It's
they
like
called it the Ratling gun.
running on itself at this point.
Yeah.
Like through all the it started like very satirical, and it's still like satirical in nature. But the things that satire isn't always just comedy. Sometimes it's just persiflage. It's just like mirroring something or like going for certain base interests of people, and that's kind of what Warhammer is doing. So when I now read this book about this very satirical, weird cult of people worshipping machines, I get like, oh damn, they're building this really crazy artifact that comes up later in their lore right now.
Yeah.
I know what that is.
You know what I realized? Because we were talking about fucking heavy metal earlier.
Yeah.
And like the minutes before we watched heavy metal, I was like, this is going to be so lit. This is going to be just like Warhammer. Like in vibe.
Yeah. That's what I assumed as well.
Heavy metal is like entirely sauceless. Warhammer is dripping in sauce. Warhammer's the sloppy Joe.
I'm curious, honestly, what it was like kind of reading the original heavy metal magazine.
Maybe it was probably better, but like I can't imagine it won't piss me off to some degree. I'm gonna see tits again. I love tits, but like not when like every single female character shows them at some point.
We're both like strongly bisexual, and still it's like, I don't know, it's like weird.
Like it's like I can tell when somebody's doing this entirely for their own gratification.
It's always kind of weird because people kind of talk about objectification these days, and like it's always a conversation that's worth having.
Yeah.
But it is insane what it was like in the 80s. Like I kind of almost makes me like sympathize with the sort of anti-porn crowd of the sex wars at that point.
Yeah.
Because like if that's what you're fucking looking at, like maybe you don't even want to reclaim it, especially if you're like maybe asexual or you come out of like a bad marriage or something like that.
I think this is gonna sound, and this is some wrong information is about to come out of my mouth, but I think that's second wave feminism. Like a big push on it, because like in first wave feminism is the suffragette movement and stuff like that, where it's like we got to focus on getting voting rights, we got to focus on being able to work and stuff like that. And second wave feminism, not all of it obviously, but there was a big segment of it that was like, we can't have sex anymore. This is like,
yeah, I mean, that was the schism. It was like, on one hand, you had people who are like, we can't have sex anymore, or like, we need to engage in what literally was called political lesbianism. Yeah. Because you like need to like shield yourself from men, which like especially latter part's like a fair point.
Yeah, like because men are gonna do some bad stuff.
Like, and like even the ones that aren't actively dangerous to you, they might like in a little sense enslave you because they are like, I think in Germany until the 90s you weren't able to open like a bank account if you were
the 90s?
Yeah.
Fuck.
There's like a lot of legacy laws that took like a very long time to get rid of. Even after, and like again, when the German sort of constitution, the basic law was written, that was the 50s, and that was when they wrote into one of the first articles in there that men and women are equal before the law, and that just was not true for a very, very long time, because like once you got married, you just were considered like a unit rather than like individuals.
You with the word, I guess like, because like obviously I love having sex and I'm a big like sex positive person, but like, that's what we were talking about. It's just like it gets to a point where it's like it's obvious that something is happening because we're trying to evoke violence and a sense of control.
Yes.
And obviously, like the people writing heavy metal aren't the same people that are like free the nip and going to like
that's
the
always what kind of gets me, especially because I remember this thing where people were there's these fucking horrid anti-censorship, I'm making air quotes right now, like crusaders were like, oh, this thing doesn't have titties as big as in Japan, that's literally censorship, why are they doing that? But then like nerds will like boycott DC for showing Batman's ass, and then DC has to like pull the comic back because you can see Batman's ass in it for like one frame. Yeah, and they just don't care about that because it's like not.
This isn't about sex positivity. It's about I want to specifically be able to masturbate to the women who can't say no.
I want like just titties. I think it's like that's what annoys me so much. It's like it's literally just I want titties. Nothing about it. Like you can have titties just everywhere. Like they are everywhere. Like you can have the most. You can have the most like benign character of all time. And women, and you're just gonna like have them drawn in fan art naked, so it's fine.
It's so funny because I'm just about to talk about World of Warcraft.
Yeah, go right ahead.
And there's a lot of titties in World of Warcraft.
There is a lot of titties in World of Warcraft.
That's kind of, I think, I'm always bewildered that Warhammer's so fucking cool. I don't think there's even a lot of tits in Warhammer, and if there are, then they're like cool Slanesh tits.
And it's just such a the one where it's like one side is tits and the other one is just like pecs, because they're like not gender ambiguous, but like the most gender binary you can imagine, which is they're both.
It's split down the middle.
Yeah, it's very funny.
Warhammer might have done sexism at some point, but might have. There's a chance.
I mean, what's still like the big. It's still like a big thing. It's still like there's no female Space Marines. And now I saw like some horrid thumbnail about like is Games Workshop testing the waters, and it's like, and it's such a funny because like they were basically releasing these like heads for Space Marines to kind of look a little more female in the looks. And like again, when I say they look more female, like Space Marines are these like
Gears of War characters.
Yes, but also like humans that have been pumped with so many steroids, and like they have had like organs flanched into them that like, and people are like, oh, you would never do that to a woman because males are actually have a slightly higher percentage, so why would you waste that procedure? It's like, dude, it doesn't make any sense to begin with.
Yeah.
Just let them be women, dude. Who the fuck cares?
We gave rats Gatling guns. You could just do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't fucking matter, man.
World of Warcraft is so good when it comes to gender politics.
Yes.
World of Warcraft Halloween is really easy. Just extremely easy. It's called Hallow's End, and it shows up in the World of Warcraft. It's not as much a big thing in the Warcraft games, because obviously it's an MMORPG. But there is lore implications. They didn't just be like, the pumpkins are out, fucking, I don't know, get a broomstick.
Yeah.
I'll get to the lore implications in a sec. But the way that it works is like, you're playing your MMORPG, and Halloween rolls around, so you can go to Orgrimmar, where the orcs live, or you can go to Ironforge, where the Alliance live, and then also obviously Stormwind, because they're gonna put stuff in Stormwind.
Yeah.
I think it's because I think like I forgot about it mechanically, but like Orgrimmar is like orcs and trolls, and Ironforge is gnomes and dwarves, so like technically all the big holiday stuff is gonna happen in the double cities, but they're gonna also put it in Stormwind.
Stormwind's like a bigger one though, isn't it?
I think
it's also
so.
kind of funny because Stormwind and Ironforge are connected by like the subway.
Yeah, so
so
it's basically just one city.
it's quite well. But man, this is not making me want to play World of Warcraft.
That's the other fucking horrible thing that ended up happening in this episode is me wanting to play goddamn WoW Classic.
Fucking
Horrible podcast. Most of everything you do for Hallow's End is just cosmetics. You're getting some cosmetics, and you're having a fun time. There's one exception. I'll get to that in a second. But you get your
Is
big
nothing
tickets.
happening in the Undercity, by the way?
No, I'll get to that. The big ticket items you want to get are you can get a Lich King costume. You can get a Deathwing costume. That's a dragon.
It's absolutely funny to me that people would be like, this is to me on the level of like, you can get the Hitler costume for Halloween.
You can get the. They probably have those.
You can get the. I mean, yeah,
Get the
but
Trump
still,
costume.
though, it's like crazy to me. I don't know that like it would be cool because like again it's funny. Like I get it. It's not supposed to be taken seriously because it's like an event that is obviously just like Halloween.
Yeah.
So it's so funny to me to have this guy who like tried to literally genocide the whole world. It's like I want to dress up as them.
Yeah, and like I'll get to the lore in a second, but none of the lore is we're dressing up to scare the demons away. Like in a way where it's like if we dress up like the Lich King, maybe you'll get scared. There's none of that. They're just it's these cosmetic things. They also have a Grom Hellscream costume you can get. So like for the guys who want some orc action, even if you're an orc, you can wear the orc costume.
Yeah.
And then the last one was the Satyr Xavius. He's got a costume.
Ooh.
That's the low key one. And then what I remember extremely vividly is I think there was like it wasn't even a quest. There's just vendors that sold like wands and shit.
Yeah.
And one of the things they sold was like the Black Cat Companion. And I was like I never got past level 20 on any of my characters, but I was walking around all times of the year with that fucking black cat. Just like in Storm when like I got my cap on me.
That's funny.
But there is one thing you can do that isn't just cosmetic, and in the Scarlet Monastery, you can fight a level 72 elite, the Headless Horseman.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And one of his like rare drops is a fucking the reins to his steed, so you can grind the Headless Horseman to get the Headless Horse.
And people just played on those back in the day. Dude.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Imagine like waiting.
It's crazy though, also because like on the one hand we like make fun of it, but on the other hand, at least it's not just $10 in the item shop.
That's true. I think.
You know?
I think because I'm a little Fortnite pilled. And it's, I hate to admit it, but sometimes I get excited. It's different.
Because again, you're like, it used to be like this thing where you make fun of nerds for fucking grinding 20 hours to get like a mount. And people are like, oh, why don't people run around in like the MMOs anymore and show off your stuff? And why isn't it as much of a community? It's like, because like, I guess playing the game isn't as big of a deal anymore because all of the stuff you're getting there, you can just like get a character boost and then you can get a like cosmetic from the store, and then you just kind of there with it.
Yeah, it's pay to play now. There's no like prestige to it.
It's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah. But I think it's really. I think it's. It reminded me. I never did the Headless Horseman thing. I think we did do Scarlet Monastery, but not during Halloween.
Yeah. No, we did not.
I think it's like a big. I don't remember if it was a raid, but he is like fucking high level. So we weren't level 60.
Yeah, I bet it would be like 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 an end game thing. Even though Scarlet Monastery isn't a end game dungeon.
Yeah.
I mean, there are end game dungeons in the classic form of the game. So
Yeah, it was like a raid light, but like in the dungeon.
yeah, exactly. Because like that was something that people could like then grind for, you know.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up Undercity though, especially close to the Scarlet Monastery, because this is where the lore kicks into gear.
Ooh.
So, Hollow's End was born in Lordaeron. Whoa! For those savvy on the lore, or those who aren't savvy on the lore, Lordaeron is the human kingdom that turned into the Undercity because of the necromancy and stuff like that.
Yes.
So, what ended up happening before all of the evil in the world is that the veil between life and death was at its thinnest. Whoa! Which is really funny in context for Lordaeron, because the Undercity is underneath it.
Yes.
But they ended up having, I think the big thing about it is there was a big Wicker Man. And they burnt the Wicker Man, and I don't know why, but the wiki says that people could throw their sticks into the fire in order to burn away the things they didn't want to carry into the reflective winter period. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, what's it supposed to mean? Right?
Yeah, it doesn't. They really didn't.
Total side note,
explain
but
that
do you
one.
know that if you do the Warlock quest in the original one, where you like get an ability where you can see ghosts, it does nothing except for the quest. Except when you go to Undercity and stay around the upper part, you can actually see the ghosts of like the people running around there.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I now that I'm like looking at my notes, I kind of wish I looked up what happened to Lordaeron specifically, because
Oh, do you not know?
I know that like the Lich King had a bunch of undead at some point, and then the undead revolted, but I don't know what happened to Lordaeron itself.
Yes, Lordaeron is actually the kingdom that Arthas was a prince of before he became the Lich King.
Okay.
So Warhammer 3 deals with him kind of running around Lordaeron and trying to fucking save his kingdom from an incursion of what was Chaos in fucking like the
Fel
Legion, the Burning Legion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Fel also.
Yeah, 'cause that comes up later.
Like demons and stuff, and he's kind of running around there, and then eventually he would go to Northrend and find Frostmourne, the blade, which would corrupt him, and then he came back and stabbed his dad, and then scorched that entire place.
No.
And then like it is actually a bit of a like dunk on him that Sylvanas decided to like make her capital under like his home, basically.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay, thank you for that. That's helpful lore.
Yeah.
Because interestingly enough, that ties into my next thing. Hollow's End took off with the Horde because it was actually the celebration for the commemoration of the day that the Forsaken broke away from the Lich King's influence, and they gathered free will. And so I think during the Hollow's End, Sylvanas makes a speech. I don't know if she does it in Undercity or if she goes to Orgrimmar. I think this is actually a post-Cataclysm thing because I don't remember it from when I played.
That was post-Cataclysm. She might be a War Shield or
yeah,
horrible.
because the other thing that happens in Cataclysm is that because werewolves are around,
Yes.
they are allowed to do Halloween stuff. And a really funny bit happens where Gen Greyman is like, "Oh no, yeah, we did the Wickerman thing also in Gilneas. We did that too, by the way, because they're just, I don't know, we just did it." And he makes a big speech about Hollow's End in front of Stormwind.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it also makes sense because I think the first Warcraft was like orcs versus humans. I think it was literally had that as a subtitle, and it was like Storm was just one of like I think 9 kingdoms.
Yeah.
And one of these kingdoms against Stormwind, then there's Lordaeron, but then Gilneas was one of them also. So this would just be like human sort of things. And if the lore is that this is like the day where we commemorate the Forsaken coming into the fold, then if the Forsaken are just like Lordaeron people, like, obviously the beginning of the Forsaken, if you're making a Forsaken character, you get summoned at a Lordaeron graveyard.
Yeah.
So that's the reason that you are Lordaeron. So, you know, that's why that ceremony is kind of actually a pretty dynamic way in which it kind of wept over there.
Yeah, and I think it's like it's cool that it happened throughout the expansions to like kind of like at first it was like I don't know, it's like the fun festival, but like you know you got some Forsaken lore kicking in there and that's cool. And then Worgen lore, we'll love to see, and it's like easy because like the Halloween werewolves are here, but like it's cool that they didn't just like kind of be like ignoring it. It's cool that they did some Worgen stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Headless Horseman though, because they just have a Headless Horseman in the Scarlet Monastery. What's with that? Well, there was a paladin who was driven to insanity. His name was Thomas Thompson, and he died. And then the Scarlet Monastery guy, Balnazar, just reanimated his corpse with fell energy, and it became too powerful. It's the Headless Horseman now.
Yeah.
So that's why he's there. That's WoW. That's an easy one.
Yeah, simple one, but also well recognized. It's funny that both our last picks with Warhammer and World of Warcraft were famously kind of at odds with each other.
Right? We're
for like very different reasons, of course, but
we're marrying the two friends. We're just into everything nerdy.
we are, and it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I think we both avoided wargaming for a very long time. Like, because like we were just like, oh, it's like so much painting and it's like a very difficult game. But like then I played it once and it's like really fun on one end.
Yeah.
And the fantasy of it is just very fun. Just,
Yeah, because
like,
it's like fun lore.
Yeah, just collecting it like an army and stuff, and like you can just do whatever the fuck you want with them because it's yours.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess it's like I don't think this is related to me getting older. I think it's just like me having a new spin on like a hobby I always had, which is like gaming.
Yeah.
And its many different facets, but you know, it's nice to have a thing where you are constrained because that allows you to be creative in like different ways.
Yeah.
Because like often when I make like characters for a video game or for a like role playing game that we play together, there's almost like this choice paralysis, especially when it's like a high fantasy setting.
Yeah.
Because you can do whatever you want, and then it's like, oh, I made this, and I want to make something else. And when you look at something like a war game with these set factions or whatever, you have like a lot of creativity, and you can have lots of fun and different angles to like build your army and even create lore for your army or whatever. But nothing's like, but you still have this frame, you know.
Yeah.
You have like, you don't need to think about like where this is coming from. You can just take a lot of inspiration from many different things.
I really feel that at a very abstract level just because I'm an actor.
Yeah.
And like when I play a character, the character exists. Like it's a pre-established person with constraints. And like I'm even further bound because I have to operate within a script. But then outside of that, it's like, what do I do? I figure out the like fun, creative things I can do within these constraints.
Yes, I think constraints are like the most important part of the creative process, frankly.
Yeah.
It's like, because if you don't have any constraints, if you have like just a blank canvas, and that's not even a good example because you're constrained by painting.
Yeah.
I thought a lot about how expressing yourself, and I'm not even just talking about art, I'm talking about any sort of expression. There's always these constraints you have to work with, and the more constraints you have, the more fun it is to try and break the constraints in like ways that still adhere to the rules, I guess.
Yeah, and even if you can just kind of come up with a story off the top of your head and write the story down, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But then you get writer's block, and
Yeah.
constraints in figuring out the puzzle of working within constraints is like an easy way to beat writer's block.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of interesting, really. It's a weird balance, yeah. Because like, writing a story is like probably one of the most free-form things you could possibly do, and that's why writer's block is just such a common thing, or like art block also.
Yeah.
Because like yeah, you just have all the tools at your disposal. You can do whatever you want. So like, what do you do? Like, it's kind of a funny philosophical question because now you like have the ability to do the exact thing you want to do, and it's hard to put your finger on like what is the thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous question, really.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
We're at the end here. There's not like any real conclusions to make, I feel like. It's fun riffing.
Trying something new, I guess.
Yeah. And it's, this is like, it's really funny that we kind of ended on this thing, because like, you and I always wanted to do like a chatting podcast. Like we would just talk about stuff and have fun.
Yeah.
And we're constraining ourselves with a topic, and then breaking the constraints is when we break into tangents, and it's fun to talk about tangents. So we did the thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't have any real... It's funny that everybody's making the veil thin on Halloween.
Yeah, that's
the thing that
across the
sticks.
board. I mean, it's especially useful as a device in fantasy settings, I guess.
Yeah.
Then,
There's nobody really focuses on the Christian angle, and...
I guess the Elder Scrolls like a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Just at least as far as there being a sort of rivalry like existing.
Yeah.
Also, again, like it's not Shadowrun, but that's because it's just Halloween from our world, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And
there
then my
is
last...
more the clash between like commercialism and like the actual real magic that exists in the setting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a fun narrative to play when you actually end up playing it. And my last big takeaway is that everybody loves the Headless Horseman.
Yeah.
That guy stuck around. I love the Headless Horseman. If you go into the graveyard right now, and if you're listening to this radio broadcast on the way to the graveyard on a Halloween night, watch out. The veil's thin. You might end up trapped in the other side. Which is, like, honestly, a net gain across the board. I don't know why you wouldn't want to just get trapped in the fantasy world.
Yeah.
That just sounds better than it not happening. But yeah, I'm your host, Forseti Fox. That's my co-host for this episode, Zuma the Puma. Do we have nothing else to say?
We do not. I'm on my phone already.
Yeah, cue the outro music, future me.
Thank you once again for listening to Foxxo Esoterica. We'll keep this outro brief. I have no doubt that you, intrepid traveler, have mysterious, macabre business to attend to. And I definitely have mysterious, macabre business to attend to. So that's why I'm releasing this episode first thing in the morning on Halloween. All editing, recording, and music is done by me. Research and, well, witty conversational banter comes from both Zuma the Puma and myself this time. He also helped with the casting of the ritual a little bit, but they don't teach this sort of superfluous magic at the Tellerine Academy, so it's not... I've said too much already. A shout out once more, however, to our anonymous benefactor who runs our humble radio station. If you'd like to support us on Ko-fi, you can at FORSETIFOX@coffee.com. Feel no obligation to. This isn't my job. And once again, blessed Samhain, happy Halloween, and I sincerely doubt that there are any Catholics in the audience, but have a drink in honor of those saints for me. Good night.